Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Oh, I love the most. If you're a startup like us, join Delta Startups today.
Suspiciousobservers.org.
All right, hello everybody. I'm not usually as excited.
Hey, Diane, good to see you.
And everything, but I'm going to turn it quickly over to Joe Blackford because he's the one that scheduled this, and he's going to introduce our guest and tell us what we're talking about because this is all on him if it rocks. So go ahead.
Jason, it's going to be great. So this is Jason Peters. I've been working on Ben Davidson's suspiciousobservers.org information for years, about 13 years on it. And Jason has been doing this since 2008. He's been following Ben. And so I've been trying to invite Ben on the show, and he's doing other types of shows, not prophecy shows. So Jason is an expert at this, and he loves Jesus. He loves God. It's funny. He's been hoping to get on the show like this and, witness. And so what I've been doing over the years is observing Ben Davidson talking about the physics of what's going on in the cosmos and how it's designed. And certain things are signs right now. And then on the other hand, you look at the Bible and the Bible is not a science book, but it's really impressive in terms of it doesn't deny science, it enhances it. So we'll be discussing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'll click you up. And Scott, I don't know how to click him up, so it's just him.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Jason Peters. Joel found me on X, where we both follow Ben on his Space Weather News channel there. And my call sign for on X is "What the Truth," and just kind of a slang term for, let's investigate and see what's going on here. So yeah, just young man, I guess you could say, from Mississippi here, and I love the Lord, love reading the Bible, and trying to understand what it's telling us. And I've been very interested in prophecy. Interestingly enough, since I was about 8 or 9 year old, I didn't understand that until later in life, that the Bible was kind of the go-to for prophecy. So that's kind of who I am and where I come from and why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I've been doing what I'm doing.
The future of money is instantly sending money to relevant friends with zero.
All right, Joel, have you got some slides for us to go
I'll
over?
pop up the slides then. So let's see here.
Did you squeeze in a total of 14?
No. Guys, just so you're aware, I over prepare. I just do. You know what? I'll just go with the full screen on this. So basically, we're of the camp of people that believe that God gives us signs. And I'll give you the verses in the next slide or so here. But there are other people that are claiming that it's going to be signless. And so whatever Jason's talking about or I'm talking about is ridiculous, because whatever needs to occur in the future here, nothing needs to occur before the rapture. Well, we argue that the signs, people, you're seeing the signs. We'll be discussing.
That was terrible, wasn't it, Diane? A landslide. It looked pretty bad. 2,000 people dead.
In the signs. We'll be talking.
And Papua New Guinea's a very poor country, so the infrastructure, there wouldn't be much help for the villages.
About the sun kicking out flares and kicking out coronal mass ejections, and then the aurora borealis that you see, and then the thunderstorms. You're seeing thunderstorms, the rayos, things like that. And then you might see a polar flip too. So I want you to be discerning people. Look at your Bibles. use your eyes, look up and observe what's going on out in the world today and the cosmos, obviously, too. So one of the gentlemen that's brilliant, Mark Hitchcock, Dr. Mark Hitchcock, tells us that there are no observable warning signs before the rapture. So whatever you're watching, don't just ignore it. And I put all the signs around his head there of all the things that are going on, you know. And then Tommy Ice, who's also a PhD, says the doctrine of imminence implies the possibility of any moment a signless coming by Christ at the rapture. Well, I don't think he's right, because we're seeing things, and we'll prove it to you. And also the Bible tells us that, right away in Genesis 1:14, that these lights in the firmament of the heaven are to divide the day from the night and let.
I hope these guys aren't pre-tribbers. That ruins the whole show when they start off like that.
And be for signs and seasons and for days. And then Joel 2:31 talks about.
Hey, Barry, good to see ya.
The moon to blood.
Without me hanging up.
The great and awesome day of the Lord. And then Matthew 24:29 talks about after the tribulation of those days, you'll have these signs in the sky. Then we move forward to Luke, which is just amazing. This age of the goyim, we call it Melech HaGoyim, it will end. And then there will appear signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, on the earth. Nations will be in anxiety and bewilderment at the sound and the surge of the sea. The people will faint with fear at the prospect of what you apparently aren't seeing, but you are. You know that. And then comes the Son of Man, Yeshua. So we know these things are occurring. And so now we're going to bring Jason back in. And Jason, what we'd like you to do is start to describe what's occurred over the last 60,000 years, whether you believe in a young earth or an old earth or whatever else. You know that God can develop these systems that look like, we've seen these patterns before. So Jason, come on back in and we'll grab, let's see. Well, I'm sorry, I'm clicking my slide. So Scott, I need help. There you go. Okay, thanks. Jason, tell us what's going on.
Okay, so so I'm gonna jump back to where you were talking about, the old Earth, the young Earth, the old Earth. I definitely believe that the Earth is an older Earth, and hence the understanding of these events going back 60,000 years. Now, I'm not saying that man's been there all this time. I don't really believe that, but there's definitely been some sort of life on Earth during these periods of time, because.
See, that's denying the Bible. They all do this. They all don't realise the Earth is only 6,000 years old. We've seen that Dr. Grady McGurdy, 25 proofs the Earth is only 6,000 years old, and it's a slam dunk. And these people should know that. They claim to be Christians, yet they're saying we're older, we're 60,000 years old and things like that. That's not biblical.
We have fossil records and stuff showing these extinction level events. But so talking about the signs, what I wanted to jump into here was is the precession of the signs, and a lot of people aren't familiar with this. Job 38 talks about this. It talks about the Mazzaroth, and the Mazzaroth is what we call in modern times the zodiac, but that's in my eyes that's kind of I call it a perversion of God's truth. And so what's very interesting is these dates here, starting with the Gothenburg event and then the China event, which the Gothenburg event was 12,000 years ago. It aligns with these certain ages, these celestial ages. And so the Gothenburg event actually aligns with the age of Leo. And so let me explain something there too. What's very interesting is the Bible talks about the cherubim, and the cherubim has like these four faces. The one face is the lion, the other the ox, the man, and the eagle. So those are like the corners of the zodiac. Well, Leo, the lion, was in the time of this Gothenburg event, or the Gothenburg event was in the time of Leo, and that was like of this time was the most major upheaval, the greatest reset to Earth in our, let me say, our era. And then, so like I said, that's the line of the cherub.
Hey, boss, good to see you, bro.
The Mazzaroth, or the Zodiac, if you will. And then, so we'll move to the China event. The China event 6,000 years ago directly correlates with the ox. And so, of course, we think of that as the biblical flood, right? And so currently, kind of jumping forward a little bit, currently we have transitioned into the age of Aquarius. And so the age of Aquarius, this is the man. And so now we're coming into the next corner of, this coming event. So it kind of,
hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
If you look at the past, it really reflects what we're going to be talking about here, this future event.
So what you're arguing is astronomy, not astrology, obviously.
That's right.
Revelation 12 is about astronomy. And Job,
right.
and Job 38 is about astronomy. And obviously Job was a long time ago, and he understood the constellations. So why shouldn't we understand them? And the intriguing thing is, obviously the pagans know this, because I'm old enough to remember 1970 when the Fifth Dimension came out with the Age of Aquarius song. And so they truly believe they're reaching their age. And they believe it was somewhere around 2012-ish or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I follow another individual that's very intelligent in this, and I say he's intelligent in what I call it astrotheology, so the theology of astronomy. And so this guy, and I'll give you some credit, his call sign or name is Arcana Riccardo, and he's from Italy. And so he goes, I can't begin to touch on his knowledge on this, but very, very intelligent. And he says that we began to change into Aquarius in 1980. So it's, like it's a vague point because it's so hard to measure and it's so far away. So it's this vague point, but you begin this.
Shawnee, that's from the musical Hair. I remember that as a kid.
Change in 1980, we would have like crossed the crosshairs of it, or entered into the next stage in about the year 2000. And so in 2020, you would say that we were, basically fully into the age of Aquarius, or 2021 then being the first year.
Who has Memorial Day? Canada.
Of the age of Aquarius.
And what happened around 2020, we can't discuss what it was, but something weird happened in the world, and everything has been different since 2020-21. So, Scott, did you have a question?
No, I just thought it was the 1980 plus 50.
Oh, it's Memorial Day there for you guys. Happy Memorial Day. I don't know if you're supposed to say Happy Memorial Day, but
Is 2030.
So Scott and I look at the windows of pop.
Okay, more respect for your Memorial Day.
Possibilities for when Yeshua would return. And it's intriguing, guys. I mean, 2030, 2033, it's in the window of possibilities.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so let's run through. So basically, 60,000 years ago, what we since occurred is that there was a galactic sheet that came through the universe, and it hit the planets, and it hit the sun, and it stuck to the sun. And think of it like a Swiffer, people. Okay, so it's like galactic electrostatic absorption, and so it coats the sun. The sun kicks off these coronal mass ejections that are huge. So what we've been experiencing lately are X1.1, things like that. There were a couple of larger X flares that came out, but they went the other direction. The main thing is it might have been an X80 or an X100, where it would just bomb the world into the Stone Age. And that last happened in 1859. So we kind of know something about it, although we only had, telegraph lines. We didn't really have electricity like we're used to today. But think of it as 60,000 years ago, we had a Stone Age. Then 48,000 years ago, we had another Stone Age. And the current shape came through and caused the sun to erupt and burp out. And then basically life would end, most of life, maybe 96% of it would end just like that. And then it would rebuild up again, whatever the life happened to be. And then it goes through these 12,000 year cycles. And we seem to be coming up to that age of Aquarius cycle right now. Right, Jason?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So the main thing is we can monitor the dust. We know what's going on. NASA is aware of it. The ESA, the European Space Agency, is aware of it too. And so what we want you to be aware of is that we seem to be coming to the end of that age. And we assume that that has to do with the Messianic age, that Yeshua will return. We don't know when, we can't set any dates or anything like that, but it does match up with these time frames. And this is thanks to Ben Davidson again to do the research. But he has other friends. Keep in mind, he has very close friends at NASA, and they'll every now and then break with their standard information that they can give out and tell them, all right, go and search more for this. So, and Jason has been observing Ben since 2008. I picked him up in 2011, and he's one of the rare people out there that really understands this extinction level event or catastrophism, if you want to call it.
Catastrophism, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of covered this, and let me click over here. So basically, I'll explain it a little bit, and then we'll hand it off to Jason to fill in the details. So the sun builds up this energy, and it erupts, something that you see literally in 8 minutes, but really the mass, the energy wave that has to come to us takes about 18 hours at the least to 24 hours to 48 hours, possibly up to 72 hours, depending upon the power of the emission. A small M class would maybe get here in 72 hours. But an X class, like say an X5, might get here in 18 hours. You never know. And so we've had some of those eruptions lately. Then the next slide next to it to the right is the aurora. So you'll see the auroras occur, and that's because energy is being forced in. It's cosmic forcing into our atmosphere. It goes in through the poles and comes back out as aurora first, which is beautiful. But what you don't know is that we've had 5 times of aurora last year. Now, I've been alive 65 years, and I haven't seen any aurora. And I'm up in Minnesota, and at times I've lived in northern Minnesota. And so to have 5 opportunities last year was a record, and it's going to get worse. That transfers into the storms. Have you noticed Houston lately? A couple of times with Houston. Have you noticed, both you, Scott, and Jason, you've been hit by storms lately. They're going to be more intensified. They're going to pop up faster and be nastier than ever before. Have you noticed the Derecho over the central United States twice now? Also, a week or so after that, you'll get earthquakes. That's the progression. It drives in through the crust, and then it comes out wherever it wants to come out. And you'll notice the earthquake swarms in California on the Mexican border, and, oh goodness, Camp Flegrei in Italy. Crazy place. If you're going to don't get excited about Yellowstone. Get excited about Camp Flegrei in Italy, okay? And then the other thing is, you're not going to believe this, people, but the lower middle slide is the South Atlantic anomaly. That means it's literally an open hole. That means, as the Bible would describe it, it's going to be the windows of heaven are opening. That's what's occurring right now. That is real. That is from from NASA, or maybe the ESA. It doesn't matter. So that is true. That is real. So if you're flying down to South America right now and you happen to fly through that region, you are getting straight UV and all sorts of other energy coming through. The other thing is, Ben is aware that these pole flips have occurred. And so I live on the 45th parallel in Minnesota, literally right on the parallel. I walk a couple of feet and I hit. At some point in time, I'll be looking at stars from the 45th parallel south as the poles flip. Yes, and we'll show you the pattern of where they'll go to based on Ben's observations. Jason, what would you like to say?
Yeah, so I'll just add a little bit here. The auroras that we see are affected, or what that is these solar storms are affecting our magnetosphere. And the magnetosphere, if you will, is like in layers or like sheets around the Earth. And so as this storm, as this wind and energy impacts that, it breaks and collapses portions of the sheet. And that sheet, that energy races back to the Earth as a plasma event or plasma energy in the atmosphere. And so that's what creates the colors based on the altitude that it's at in the sky, creating the different colors and such. So that's what you're seeing there. And so the storms and the like extreme lightning and stuff.
Everyone seems to be ganging up on Israel, don't they? Our government, the press is going right off about how our government's not backing the Jews. Like the press are really on his back, our Prime Minister's back, because he's not stopping all this anti-Semitism going on.
That we see these storms intensifying, as you were talking about. That's because it's this with the magnetosphere being weakened and this soma, this hole that's in it, in the magnetosphere, it's allowing more of this energy in, and so it where it would have created like a thunderstorm, now it's creating these like ultra violent thunderstorms and tornadoes and high winds and all this. It affects all of this energy that we consider our weather, our climate here. The soma is very interesting. I'll jump to this because this has been on other social media and stuff. This weird glitch has started happening in the instruments that they use to track like currents or waves in the ocean. And so they keep seeing like this, it looks like a tsunami or something that's going across the ocean, but it's simply a glitch.
Hey, Leslie, good to see you. Welcome back.
In their instrumentation, and it's caused by this, like extreme radiation that's piercing onto these instruments and causing them to fault out and create these reports of these high waves when there's nothing really there. And yeah, so that's kind of what I got to add.
We are noticing those fault readings. It's very interesting to notice that. You're right.
Very interesting.
And so these surges, I used to sell copper.
You fit right in here, Leslie. That's why you got a wrench. You're part of the family.
And
it is a good little click.
And so surges disturb my computers and my networks. And Amazon has problems. So Ben has been noting, Ben Davidson, of course, that many networks went down over the last few weeks as we had these auroras.
Oh, okay.
It's just kind of tracked with the auroras. The more the auroras, the more the networks are going down. USPS was down. Amazon was down. Not Amazon, but a bunch of other people. I sell Amazon, so I've got to be careful. So anyway, the main thing is
it's clearing up already.
But they're also a sign of a sickness in our magnetosphere. And I'll show you that slide in a couple of seconds about it. That's basically your ozone layer. That's where the magnetosphere is. And so let's click it forward to another slide here. And Scott, if you can hold that up. There we go.
All your baby essentials at Baby Bunting, backed by our price promise. T's and C's apply. Bye, Baby Bunting.
What am I doing wrong? Okay, there you go. So it's interesting that we have people telling us that the Jubilee year seems to be coming in 2025.
Lars, you remember sometimes at the end of the stream I play Messianic Jews finding Jesus? They're very, very moving and touching testimonies.
It's off the Essene calendar. And come back to us on June 13th. We'll talk about the calendars and have some fun with that. We'll talk about the contrasting styles of the calendars. But the main thing is strong geomagnetic storm reaches the Earth, continues through the weekend. This is May 10th. And so NOAA, I monitor them daily to see if I can run out and watch auroras. they're aware that they are storms, people. They're geomagnetic, and so they're forcing energy into our atmosphere. And then this is space.com saying the next 4 or 5 years will be the best time to see northern lights in the cycle. Why? Because we're in solar maximum. We're getting close. Oddly enough, 2025 is the point where solar maximum should peak, which seems to match up with potentially a Jubilee year. And then also you'll have this time then afterwards where we go into solar minimum. And so you'll notice that the dust doesn't collect on the sun as well when it is at its maximum, when it's really active with CMEs and filaments and all sorts of activity going on the sun, and so basically then by the time we get to 2032, 2033, we should be at a solar minimum, which means the dust could collect even more. And I'll explain that in a few slides. So Jason, what would you like to say about this?
Well, I wanted to add how incredible my aurora experience was here in North Mississippi. It was just extremely impressive, and it was something that, being able to see that is something that I've thought about a larger portion of my life. What could I do to, get to witness this at some point? And as I followed Ben and began to understand more and more about what's taking place, I began to realize that, hey, I'm gonna be able to sit right here and at some point get to see this. And so that actually took place on May 8th. So that was really, 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 really impressive. I think I took probably 40 photos or something of the lights and the sky and stuff here. But what I wanted to add is the solar storm that created these auroras that were visible. It wasn't like a super impressive solar storm. It should not have created, and Ben says this too, it should not have created auroras that come this far south or in this low of latitude. And just to kind of give an idea of how impressive this was, and Ben talked about this, I witnessed in the island country of New Caledonia, they had eyewitnesses there of the auroras there, and in their history.
Yeah, I remember that, but I don't think it's going to get passed on to William. I think Charles is the man.
Even using instruments, they had never recorded seeing the auroras there in New Caledonia. So that's extremely impressive, and that's quite a ways actually south of the equator. So it was impressive enough that it actually went south of the equator, like basically almost wrapping around.
So I got a good one to finish with today. Prophecy Club. I'm going to finish with them as usual.
I was on the phone a year ago. So we had a big storm on March 12th and then on March 24th. We actually had a planet killer on March 24th, but it went the other direction. It went from the sun to the backside of the sun. But on March 12th, I happened to call my sister, who happened to be down in New Zealand, and she was watching the aurora, the same aurora that I was going to go out and chase. We didn't see much up here in Minnesota on that day, but it's interesting to note that you've got aurora coming from both poles. And sorry,
well done, Leslie.
It works better in the round Earth.
Right. Yeah, and also like we see, we know of what we see here, but a lot of people may not take into consideration the auroras and stuff that are taking place on the opposite side of the Earth that we would just read about in the news, but not visibly be able to see. So they actually happen a little bit more often when you take that into consideration than what we, just imagine or think of.
Okay.
Matchmasters is awesome. I love playing against real people.
Your circuit is.
Okay, let's move on to the next slide here. And there we go. So I want to point out that the Houston storm was nasty. And they're getting another one too, but this is the storm on 5/16 of 24. And so that left 7 dead. Think about that. And buildings shattered. It literally
At least you had fruit, Leslie. A lot of people haven't.
blew out the windows. What we think occurred is that it was literally like pressure coming in from our cosmos into our atmosphere and just blasting. It was. Jason, do you have any comments about what you think occurred on with Houston?
No, I don't know exactly what took place there. I know that was a super, super extreme event. I just know that these storms, they affect the global electric circuit, and it supercharges that. And again, and we'll talk about in a minute, as you described, as the magnetosphere weakens, it allows that energy to penetrate deeper into Earth. It affects the other layers of our atmosphere, the ionosphere and the troposphere. It affects those even more so than it would. And so it just super energizes again these storms, and creating, these events. And
Yep, Diane's links keeps us all up to date, don't they, guys?
These
Love
types
you,
of
links,
weather that we've never even really seen before, we might not understand.
There's a question from Cynthia. That is crazy. I live in hill country of Texas and the winds here are crazy. You should notice increased winds. You should be more aware, more careful, because not only the winds on a consistent basis, they'll be up maybe 10, 15% higher than normal, but the gusts at times. When you have a CME coming through and you know the auroras have happened, say the week before, although it used to be a week delay from auroras to thunderstorms, it's sometimes 3 and 4 days now. It's faster. Okay, so just be aware of that. That it's going to happen faster and more dangerous. And so I wouldn't want to go out on a cruise right now. And I'd be careful at times with flying. If there's auroras coming, I wouldn't go up and fly, guys. Be careful. And I think I talked to either Ben about that or somebody else, that it's not a good time to fly if the auroras are busting loose. Okay, Jason, any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I don't have a comment on that.
Okay, let's look at
it's global warming. I mean, that's what I'm being sarcastic, Jason.
Yeah,
it's
cosmic.
Well,
it's the sun.
It is, but it's cosmic.
Okay, so on the right-hand side, we've got.
Yes, I agree. There's global warming, but it's not caused by man. It's caused by God and the cosmos.
The second destructive tornado in the week slammed central U.S. with 100-mile-per-hour winds. So Houston was up to almost 120 miles per hour. These are 100-mile-per-hour winds. According to Ben and other sources, we will see a level 6 hurricane come through this year. Okay, so you know what 4s are like. Scott, do you remember Mobile and New Orleans back in 2005?
Yeah. Opal and Frederick and I'm very familiar. We always lived an hour off the coast, so we didn't worry about it too much. So,
well, I've had vacations down there, and it's frightening what has occurred and what will occur. And baseball-sized hail. You'll also notice larger hail coming, and just more frequently. And unfortunately, they're in Tornado Alley, so it's just going to be worse there. I feel so sorry for them. Continuing on. So what you should notice then is more earthquakes. So the first week you have aurora. The second week, well, actually, the first week you have the.
Personally, I've never heard of that Terran Sky before, but that channel's got something like 8 million subscribers.
The CME coming in, the solar wind coming in from the sun, and then a few days later you have the auroras. Okay, and then actually the auroras are right away. Almost a few hours after the energy arrives through the poles.
I'll check that out tonight, Bas. That looks interesting.
Then you should notice the storms start to whip up within a few days, 3 days, 7 days. Then about 2 weeks out, you'll notice the earthquakes. This is a long time ago, but I did note already that we have earthquake swarms on the Mexican border with California, and we have Camp Flegrei in Italy that are just whipping up nasty earthquake storms. Jason?
Yeah, so that Count Caligari is very interesting, and Ben's been talking about that. It's the most significant volcanic, um, if you will, opportunity or um, system in that particular area, and the earthquakes that's taken place there over the past couple of weeks is it's something that the people have never witnessed, not in their lifetime. Just like us witnessing or seeing these auroras and these storms, they've seen this uptick in earthquakes
Okay.
that are just really
I'd recognise his face then, Diane.
unusual.
So what John Barney is describing here, and maybe Jason can describe it better than me, is there's this energy that pulses at us from the sun, and you'll see the ozone layer kind of I don't know, how do you describe it, Jason? How it handles the energy, and it kind of expands and contracts, and it bounces almost, right?
Yeah, that's right. So with the earthquakes, so there's an atmosphere below us too that is not like the atmosphere. It's these crustal layers, the mantle, so that is excited by this energy as well, and that's the reason, like you're saying, it takes maybe 2 weeks for us to see these earthquakes. It takes a little bit longer for that the earth, the layers of the earth to be excited by this energy, and then, like you said, it'll release that energy, kind of wherever it chooses, or at these weaker spots, it'll release that energy as an earthquake.
Okay, and continuing on then.
Every time you hit the road.
I left my keys in the.
So the poles. So basically, what happens is the North Pole was heading towards Canada for years there, from about 1950 to 2000-ish, and then suddenly it stopped, and then it started moving the other direction towards Russia. Now, if you wonder why Russia is invading Ukraine and other places, it's because I believe the North Pole is heading that direction, and Ben is the one that touts that the most. But NASA is aware of this too. They know the poles are moving. The South Pole is moving too. But the main thing is, if the pole moves, Russia is going to get colder. They're already a cold place. They have Siberia. But can you imagine being chased by the pole? And according to Ben and some other people, what you'll notice on the right-hand slide here is the North Magnetic Pole is going to head south and go through and kind of end up. It'll go through the Dragon's Triangle, if you believe that to be true. It is. It's just outside of China, and end up probably close to India. So you do not want to be in India during the end of days. It's not going to go well for you. Okay. Now we're hoping that the pole flip will occur at the tail end of everything. North America is going to do okay, but once again, I'm in Minnesota, 45th parallel. I'm going to be looking at the stars from the 45th parallel south at the end of this pole shift. And the other pole would come through the Bermuda Triangle, we believe, and end up just off the coast of South America. And so it seems like pole flip has happened. Jason, you mentioned every 12,000 years these pole flips happen. It seems to happen. Ben thinks it's a day or so. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I agree with Ben. Like I said, I'm no astrophysicist or anything like that, but just based on the years of hearing Ben talk about what's taking place, it'll take place in about a day.
So you should have what do you call them? The woolly mammoths up on the pole.
Last, apparently airports have to change their GPS every now and then because the magnetic pole's shifting, and they've got to adjust their radar for that. And apparently it's a real thing.
Eating food that is nice, warm weather food, and then suddenly it freezes within a millisecond, and you can see that the food hasn't even digested. It literally froze right away. So on a pole flip of a day, if you're in a warm zone, say India, and it suddenly becomes the North Pole or the South Pole, your you're going to die quickly in a millisecond if you happen to be in the right location. And I still think the Ozarks are a wonderful location. And Corey Ten Boom agrees with me. Then you'll survive. And so we assume that 4 to 10%.
Australia looks to be in the best position of all, apart from New Zealand.
Of the population will survive. Be a survivor. That's what Yeshua wants you to do. And look up, observe the signs, and be a survivor. So, Jason, any other comments?
Yeah, no other comments on that. It's pretty well explained.
Okay, so once again, magnetic weakening. We've talked about the ozone layer, the magnetosphere, the ionospheric disruption. We talked about that. It's literally wobbling, and that's how Isaiah described it. The earth will wobble to and fro like a watchman's hut, I think it is, like a drunk, and you'll have a volcanic surge. You'll have the oceans shut down. It's extreme weather. This sounds like the Bible, guys. It just does. So continuing on. So basically, this is about the magnetosphere. And according to sources like NASA and the ESA, the field seemed to be at near maximum strength in 1859, but then it's been weakening since then. By the year 2000, it was down to 90% strength. Then by the year 2010, it was down to 85%. Now, the year 2000 was reported by NASA. The year 2010 was reported by the ESA. And so we have more auroral issues and satellite issues. Elon Musk lost 39 satellites back in 2022 due to the fact that the magnetosphere is thinning. So if this is actually the case where it's literally going to hockey stick down now, and it seems like we're tracking it pretty well. Now, NASA and ESA are not reporting anymore, and they don't want to scare us. It's like screaming fire in a crowded theater. But yet we know it because we're seeing more auroras. We know the sun is not giving us more energy. It's typical for a solar maximum. Something is causing more auroras. That's what you're looking at right here. Jason, any comments?
Yeah, so Ben was saying that basically by 2025, 2030, that this percentage of change that we're talking about will basically be 1% per year. So in a 5-year period of time, you'll lose 5% of the magnetosphere.
So Ben is telling us, and there are some other people that we probably can't name, but they work for NASA, and there's a wonderful guy from Space Weather. I think I could state Tony Phillips. He has been discussing this more and more lately, Dr. Tony Phillips. But anyway, so Ben has been saying the kill shot would occur in the 2040s, 2050s. Now he's moving it back and saying probably the 2030s, which seems to be about the time that we've got these windows that Scott and I talk about all the time, where it seems like Yeshua could return in 2030 or 2033. It seems plausible, based on lots of information. But we've been wrong before, and we're not predicting any dates, obviously. So the main thing is these are reported. I don't have the reports with me right now, but I can show you the report from the ESA and the report from NASA. So they're stating the 10% drop, the 15% drop. And we know ESA was the one that stated it is dropping faster, like Jason mentioned. So anything else? Otherwise, I'll move forward. Okay, so what does this mean, this magnetic excursion? It means that you're going to get more direct radiation, more UV from the sun. It's going to change your climate. It's going to change your lifestyle. Jason, do you know biological coupling at all? Do you know what that means?
I just know it affects us internally, and a lot of that's has been visible in years. There's an uptick in heart-related conditions and stuff when we have solar storms, and so even 10 years ago, that was recorded. These how it's kind of correlates. It almost occurs at the same time as these weather extreme weather events or whatever, and as that continues to collapse, it's going to get worse.
So you're going to have headaches. So when the auroras show up, let's pretend that you can't see the auroras. Well, they're still here. you will feel a headache. Whether real or imagined, it should occur for a lot of people. Your fillings should bother you too, and other things, knee aches. If you have metal in your body, you'll probably feel that. So that's the biological side of this. And also, according to Ben and some other people, you will feel dumber when the solar energy hits. It's just okay. So we have electrolytes that we need to survive, and we need salts and things like that, water and salts. Well, it's going to cause problems with us. We won't think as clearly, and animals will lose navigation. You'll see birds flocking, and what they tend to do is,
Diane, didn't he recently permit gay marriages in Catholic churches? I'm pretty sure he has.
not flock when there are aurora discharges. They would sit in one spot. That they can't flock. They can't migrate because they've lost their navigation. And satellites will fall from the skies or just burn up. And then of course, so that's navigational. And then technologically, you're going to notice computer issues. You're going to notice web issues. Networks are going to come down when these auroras hit. Jason?
Yeah, so there's even a possibility if there's a strong enough solar storm that our power sources or whatever could even fail. It would actually set the power lines on fire. They would just burn up.
You're right. It happened before. So once again, the Carrington event back in 1859, the telegraph lines were on fire. The poor guys operating the telegraphs would burn their hands and be shocked, just from the power of the surge. That was probably an X80. So based on how I read the Bible, and that's Revelation 6, verses 12 through 17, there seems to be a mohair micronova. It's not a serious one, but it's enough to drive the kings of the earth and other people underground for a period of time. And it looks like, according to the Bible, everybody goes underground. So at some point in time, you're going to need to, what you'll do is just dig up your backyard and build a sod house. Just get 8 inches of sod above your head. And keep in mind, you'll need protection from all 6 angles. Underneath you, obviously, because you just dug up your sod. Above your head, but all 4 sides, north, south, east, west, because it's going to literally come in at us and then surge from side to side at us. Jason, any comments?
Yeah, no comments on that.
Okay. All right. So basically, and you'll know when that occurs because the Bible tells you everybody will know about that sign. Rich, poor, slave, free, everybody, kings of the earth, everybody will know. So when that occurs, it's biblical. Okay, and the odd thing about it is that people won't acknowledge Yeshua and God in heaven, but they will acknowledge the wrath of the Lamb and the one seated on the throne. So it's interesting how.
Yeah, I thought so, Leslie. I thought that was right.
The wealthy, the rich, the kings, they'll probably just acknowledge this was a God shot, and now we're going to go back to business as normal and treat people horribly.
The one thing that I would add to that is, based on some other research I've done, it seems that like supernatural events, the supernatural side of biblical events, it takes place around either these high energy areas or something to do with the magnetic ley lines of Earth, like you was talking about the Dragon's Triangle or the Bermuda Triangle. So those are, you can look that up. Those are scattered all over the earth in like a geometric pattern. But what's very interesting is it talks about the stars falling from the heavens as the sky recedes. These stars are falling from heaven, and I really believe that what we're referring to, we're going back to Psalm 82, verses 6 and 7. And so what's actually falling there, the stars that it's talking about are these celestial enemies, if you will, of heaven that are being cast to earth. So that's just a little glimpse into like the supernatural side of part of what's going to be taking place. It's going to be more than just these like weather and biological related events. There's going to be some things that we will see and maybe not understand.
He is correct in many ways. Jason, thank you for pointing that out. Isaiah 24:21, if you read it in the Hebrew, will have the Zavah. These are like warrior angels. We'll just consider them to be fallen angels that are in the Marom, which is like a level between the earth and the heavens. So it's their little area to patrol as watchers. And God will punish the Zavah in the Marom of the Marom in that day, plus the kings of the earth on the earth. And that's Isaiah 24:21. So you can look that up anytime you want to. So yes, Jason, also Revelation 12 kind of talks about it. By the way, as long as we're talking about Revelation 12, you have mentioned that you think Revelation 12 already occurred, but there might be a future retelling of that story. How does that work?
Leslie, did you have an NDE with Jesus, did you?
So so I was talking earlier about the celestial ages, and so the
Clearing again. Hang on, guys.
Time began with Virgo, and Virgo being the house of bread, and so Christ here, he described
Trying to get the camera to focus.
or this event that took place with Christ, the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread. And so what that was symbolic of was this age from Virgo to Pisces, Pisces being like the church age. And so that's kind of touching on some of that information. I know a little bit more about it, but I don't want to dip into that too heavily.
Okay. All right. And then continuing on. So what are you watching for going forward? What's a sign of the micronova, which seems to be the 6th seal? No matter when it occurs, what are you watching for? You're watching for winds. You're watching for jet streams to change. You're watching for more UV penetration. And it's going to penetrate your skin more. So you'll notice more skin cancers and more issues. You'll burn faster, people. And with your kids, be careful, You will notice an odd pattern of the sun going, before it goes micronova, and the Bible lists it as black as that point. You will have the sun go from yellow to white to red to black. According to, we've seen micronovas occur across the cosmos over the years, only recently, really, since about 2022, but now we're spotting them more often. So the basic thing is the dust, like I mentioned, you have this magnetic electrostatic connection where the dust just kind of collects on the sun. And so we believe the sun was already gone. All right, I'm old enough to remember a yellow sun. You guys are pretty young compared to me. The sun is much more white now, okay? It just is. And so there probably is some dust collection on it right now. Once it goes black, if it happens to match with a blood moon eclipse, we're going into the 6th seal. Just be aware of that for timing. I don't know when, but basically, so watch for jet stream changes, auroras. If you start noticing many, many more auroras, that's dishealth, the world. And so just be aware with that. Yeah, here you go. Ingrid, let me just pop this up real quick here, show it. Ingrid, thank you for agreeing with me. 2 witnesses there agree. Told that the sun is now white. It is a different color than it used to be. It just is, guys. So thanks, Ingrid, for that. I don't know if anybody else. Yeah, here it is. We've got one more. Yes, I'm 64. The sun is different. When I was a kid, it was more yellowish. It just was. It's whitish now. So just keep that in mind. That's another sign that there's something sick going on with our ozone layer, our magnetosphere, things like.
Okay, I haven't looked at the sun to see how white it is lately, but when I was a kid, it was a yellow sun. Next time I go outside, I'm going to check that out. But it was a yellow sun when I was a kid.
And the sun in general with the dust collection. Jason, should I continue on, or do you have another comment?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. And so as the magnetosphere weakens, you'll notice a faster upper level winds, and we're noticing that the storms are faster in the upper levels. Increased pressure differentials. Oh yeah. Jason, any comments on those two?
No, I don't have a comment on that.
Okay, so basically,
Trump was taught at a Jesuit college.
you're going to notice high pressure, low pressure. They spin in different directions.
Trump's Supreme Court appointment. I can't remember his name, but he was a Jesuit.
And it's going to be uglier when they bump. Okay, that's where the storms occur. So don't be there, or go underground. Don't play around like these people are doing. Like this poor lady the other day here, she was out storm chasing the tornadoes in Iowa, and her car was smashed up. I don't know if she lived or not. That it's not the time to storm chase. You learn something else. Okay, it's real. It's dangerous. So be careful. And then electrodynamic cloud microphysics. Yeah, you're going to notice the clouds are going to be different. They're going to move faster and cause more rapid storms.
I will mention.
Yeah.
I will mention a storm that we had here that was very odd. Back like early spring, we had a storm here. I've lived on the same property for my entire life, 40 plus years, and we've never had a storm here with any magnitude whatsoever come out of the north. And so from the south and the west, my house is actually kind of protected from a ridge line. Like we're lower here than the area around us.
Yeah.
And so the storms kind of go over us here. I mean, we experience some winds and stuff, but around us it's much worse. Well, this storm come out of the north and really caught us by surprise. And it took out a bunch of our trees and did some damage to our houses and stuff like that.
Shawnee, they're going to use Trump for the civil war they're starting. That's who the opposition's going to be. It's going to be between Biden and Trump, or Obama will take over from Biden, and it'll be Obama and Trump.
So really weird, very strange storm.
There was a strange storm that occurred with an earthquake just about 10 miles west of New York City, back just a few days before the solar eclipse of April 8th. Okay. And so in that case, it drove the energy into the soil, into the ground, the crust, and then it came back up again through the Statue of Liberty as the electricity, I believe.
Okay, Bars, the science of that makes sense. I'll give you that.
Believe it or not, a lightning bolt shot out of the Statue of Liberty up into the sky. We have not seen that much over the history of the world, other than volcanoes. That happens all the time with volcanoes. So we saw that in New York City. There was energy there, and it was frightening, and the New Yorkers noticed it because they don't believe in earthquakes out there because they haven't really seen much of it over the years. So you'll see more ground to cloud lightning than you've ever seen in your life. Jason?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. And then certain, like I mentioned, the X factor is important. We had an X 8.8 that missed the Earth. We had an X 5.4 that barely clipped the Earth. If those storms would have hit us, we would have noticed it. Jason, you would have seen Aurora south of you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So once again, I'm citing suspicious observers. I've been clipping a lot from him, Ben Davidson, of course. On the right-hand side, this is proof from Reuters, and I have more sources than this that state surprised astronomers find new type of star explosion on micronova. That can be a minor level, which I call the mohair micronova, or and keep in mind, then right after that, the sun degasses. It's a technical term, but it's think of the sun as like hydrogen, almost like a metal surface. It's fairly hard.
And let's not forget, Trump has done that speech. You took me in, you knew I was a snake, so when I bit you, why are you blaming me? That's not really that's the gist of it, but it's a bit more detailed than that. But he admits he's a snake, and he plays sympathy for the devil at his rallies. What's wrong with people? Can't they see and hear what's going on?
And so it has to release. And at that point in time, then that's a micronova. And then after the release, it degasses. and then it comes back again. And so maybe we've had more of these, but there was something called the Maunder minimum back in 1645 to 1780. And remember when George Washington and the people were crossing the Delaware?
Okay, that minimum, that solar minimum in the 1700s, that's why Stradivarius violins are so precious, because the wood grew a lot more compact then because it was cold. And this went on for like 20 years or something. So there's a whole generation of a really low solar heat time. And that's what makes Stradivarius violins sound so good, because it's really unique wood.
And it was open. Well, it had been frozen for years before that. So basically,
that
was the Maunder minimum that they came out of as our country was being formed. And so we believe that there was a micronova going into the Maunder minimum. Jason, any comments?
Yeah, I agree. I believe that's absolutely what was taking place there.
So what's going on then into the future? You'll see more solar ozone destruction. So basically, the normal balance is you're going to have ultraviolet ozone.
Leslie, I'm going to sign up the digital currency, whatever I have to, but when it comes out as the actual mark, there's no way I'm taking that. But there's going to be some steps before they do that. So that's my plan.
Ozone creation, as the particles kind of coalesce in that ozone layer, and then but also particle ozone destruction occurs, and the things that would cause that seem to be occurring a lot.
Hey, I was never here. Good to see you.
So you'll have more solar ozone destruction, more solar forcing of heat, more solar forcing of precipitation, solar forcing of wind, solar forcing of lightning, solar forcing of storms, solar forcing of Jason, do you know those terms?
I'm not familiar with those, no.
Okay. More solar forcing, and then solar forcing of Hadley cells and Walker
circulation. I'm good
this
end.
Those terms.
No, I do not.
Okay. We listen to Ben and we try to pick up on things, but I have not researched those at all either.
Yeah, it becomes so much to go back and check into. So you kind of pick on the parts that you are more interested in.
You're right. I'm a Bible nerd. I'm just trying to take Ben's information and remember that Ben wasn't really a believer when he started out in 2008. And Jason, you can speak better than I can on this. He's been moving our direction.
Yeah, he is definitely moving in the direction of being a believer. He has to be searching. He's made several comments about there being a creator that.
Shawnee, did Trump sign the Noahide laws too? I'm not sure. I think he may have.
That all of this had to have some designer to work the way everything works.
And I'll mention that as I went out the past umpteen weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, to Stillwater area, the boom site we call it, and watched the auroras at a park. I tended to gather a crowd because I would quote Ben Davidson and other physics professors too. And so people would listen, and it wasn't a ministerial time frame. I mean, I wasn't throwing the gospel at them or beating them up with the Bible. I was just basically mentioning, here's the physics of it. Here's what's happening. It seems to be biblical. And the people would look at me and say, that's biblical. And they would get it. And so it increased their faith, so to speak. Right, Jason?
Yeah, I agree. They like watching my social media and the comments that people were making, in a very pleasant way. They're making these biblical comments, but I think not understanding the future of these type things.
People don't know what's coming, and we don't want to scare people tonight. We want you to increase your faith.
Right.
Praying to Jesus is important, and remembering that our Father will determine when He returns. That's what we need to be aware of as things get worse. But we knew this already. We knew Jesus was returning, and we knew there would be signs. I mean, He mentioned all the signs, and I cited a couple of them. The main thing is, I don't want you to believe the people that are saying there are no signs, there will be no signs, there will be the rapture, and that's it. Guys, you need to be aware that there are signs, and just like if you see, well, okay, this is a Navy term, but red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. Jesus kind of cites that to his guys because they're on the Galilee, and that's a big enough lake that if you get hit by a storm, and they were hit by a storm, they should know better. So the main thing is Jesus does kind of paraphrase that naval line, and we should be aware of the signs and not go out on a boat fishing on my Lake Mille Lacs, say when you're 18 miles out and the storm's coming fast. It'll be dangerous. Okay. Or for you guys, the ocean. Be careful. Be careful. Okay, so this is a slide that I created to show you the sixth seal. And Jason, I don't know if I showed this to you at all, but it does show down below the sun going from yellow to white to red to black. And so the sixth seal talks about the fact that you would have a blood moon eclipse matching up. And now the lady in the middle is wearing a mohair sweater. Yes, that's in the text. It's trichonos in the Greek. And so that is, and keep in mind the Greek is right next door to Turkey, and the mohair sweaters, the Angora sweaters, come from Turkey. And so John would have known about this type of a goat, okay? And so if you notice that the sun is changing these colors, and a blood moon is coming, and so let's run through what's coming up next. So 3:14 of 25, that would be Purim. And then 9/7 of 25, leading up into Tishri, into Rosh Hashanah. Then 3/3 of 26, we'll have another blood moon eclipse. Then 28, and 29, and then off to the far distant side, 32, a couple of them there. It's a tetrad, not on the Jewish festivals or on God's festivals, but in 32 and 33 we'll have 4 of them. If those activities sync together, you would have the sixth seal. Now, I'm not predicting any days, but I'm just telling you, based on what I see in the Bible, it syncs. Jason, any comments?
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with this slide until you sent the update, and I don't have any specific comments on it, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
You're going to know, people. You're literally going to know when the sixth seal occurs. It's not the doctrine of imminence. It's the doctrine of just reading your Bible and realizing the physics behind how the sun can turn from yellow to white. And everybody is all agreeing with me. It's turned more white, then to red, then to black. And if we come up to a time when the moon is eclipsing and you have that occurring with the sun, that's the sixth seal. So you'll need to go underground. You have to. You would die. And everybody does anyway.
Wow, Diane.
Jason, any other comments
I knew it. I knew he was under the Noahide laws.
on that? I think that's it for my slides. I think I left that one for the end.
Oh, they all signed the Noahide laws. There you go. There's the truth of them.
Oh, no. I do have 2 more slides, so we'll run through these. So basically, this is kind of capping up everything. We're at 8 o'clock right now. We've talked about geomagnetic reversals, the pole shift. We've talked about crustal shift and earthquakes that should occur. Also, meteorites. We didn't really talk much about meteorites. Jason, any comments on meteorites?
So meteorites, I'll just briefly touch on that. So the magnetosphere also basically protects us somewhat from this space debris, if you will.
Right.
And so as that continues to collapse, it creates more of an opportunity for these space debris, meteorites, for them to enter Earth's atmosphere, and then not necessarily burn up. They may actually impact Earth because there's not as much energy there to burn up these objects that are falling towards us.
Are you familiar with the 1908 Tunguska meteorite?
Yep.
To some degree, yes.
Okay. Horrible. Not a big meteorite, but horrific in terms of the damage.
And it didn't even touch the ground. It exploded over. Actually,
the conspiracy theory is Tesla shot a ray gun at Tunguska Forest in 1917, whenever it was. So, yeah, apparently Tesla fired off some sort of weapon that caused that.
it basically exploded into the sky and
Yeah, you had
destroyed
die.
an enormous spot of timber.
And left a depression in the earth. So
Yeah,
that and you know, in the trumpets that will have progressively larger debris coming in from the sky, from the cosmos.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. According to Ben and other physics professors, the sea will surge and slosh as we have this pole shift. The coast will be wiped out. So Florida is not going to be a place to be. Okay. California is not going to be a place to be, especially on the coastlines. You'll want to be in a safe zone, and you'll just pick up whatever you can and get to a safe place. That's about it. Anything, Jason?
Yeah, nothing on that.
Okay. More volcanic activities. There will be a nuclear World War III at some point in time, because you can see it right now. I mean, you see the signs of that every day. Russia is angry with the United States. China is angry with Taiwan. There's the Ukraine war. There's Israel versus Gaza, where you guys are noticing the war drums every day. And the odd thing is that people are pushing for it. I mean, I don't want World War III because I understand that my children would have to fight in it, and I don't want that to occur. But it's happening. Comments? Anything, Jason?
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Okay. You'll notice more crop failures, more hunger. Now, these are actually, all four of these are from Revelation 7:16. As the saints come out of the Great Tribulation, they were hungry during the Great Tribulation. That's usually caused by crop failures and things like that. They will thirst, and there will be less clean water coming out of the Great Tribulation. The sun will beat down with them. Now, the funny thing is, in the text, it says fall down, technically, in the text, and no one wanted to translate that because that would assume that the sun would fall out of the sky and literally fall on our heads, and that can't happen. But UV can fall on you, and a micronova can fall on you. Jason, any comments about that?
Interesting.
It's going to be an impressive event.
Yeah. And then there will be global warming, but there will also be cooling. There will be areas that will be warmer and drier, and some areas will flood. You'll just notice strange things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're trying really, really hard to have an economic collapse. These are extinction level events, but there's many of them coming at us right now, not just one or two. And so, according to Ben, these are his list mostly. I cite quotation marks and then Ben's name. There will be more wars and crimes and fights. Just people will be kind of more hysterical. And the Bible talks about it. I mean, I kind of read the verse, Luke 21:25, where it described leading up to this tribulation, you will just have wars and crimes and fights, and people will be going crazy. You'll have technological issues with your electronics and satellites. Satellites fell out of the sky with Elon Musk back in 2022. Meteorological, weather, electric storms, things like that. Seismological, as we've mentioned, earthquakes. Physiological, which, Jason, you covered, more heart attacks and strokes, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Physiological. And anxiety, and just panic, like out of nowhere, not understanding why you're feeling this way.
Yep. Psychological, we will get a little dumber with reptile brain issues. Literally, that's what it hits. The electrical surge hits the reptile brain. So be patient with your friends. Be patient with your loved ones. It's going to be very interesting as this electrical surge, these auroras, hit your reptile brain area of your brain, okay? Emotional instability, cognitive decline, panic increases, so that's all Ben. And then I added in that there will be observable signs. You'll know something's going on, and you'll see patterns and other things like that. Now, is this the wrath of God? No. This is just the end of the world. This is not God hating believers.
Not world. Age.
Okay, well, age, right, aeon.
That's a pet peeve of mine.
No, well, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's there in the Hebrew and there in the Greek. It's aeon in the Greek. Yeah. Olam.
And Joel, I was going to say that this, especially about the physiological and the psychological, I believe that that Yah can certainly protect whoever he wants to. If he can protect Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in a burning furnace, then
Exactly.
a few cosmological issues are child's play for protection. So I believe that really should be the prayer. Versus really even worrying about this at all. We should be observing it. We should be watching. We definitely should be watching these signs. But as far as, like you said, Joel, maybe at some point in time it might be to pack up and go. I don't believe we're there.
I never knew that he went to India vast. I never knew that.
Yeah, I believe at that point in time, I think there will be certain prophets, and God will warn people, and I don't think it'll be something that people think is crazy when it happens. When we're told it is time, and it might be, hey, move to ancient the wilderness in ancient Ammon, Moab, and Edom. Again, that's where I see in Daniel where the king of the north, for some reason, cannot conquer that region. You see in Zechariah. So I believe there will be places of protection, and I believe even if you're living in Alabama or Minnesota or Mississippi or even California, as far as some of this stuff, you can certainly be protected. But at some point in time, it might be that you need to leave.
So let's talk about Scott's comment about prayer and cite Ben from earlier today, because Ben Davidson has been talking about how it's going to be stressful as things change and our regular world gets different. And so his comment is, for some odd reason, prayer works on refocusing the brain back on what's good. So don't think of yourself during this time frame. Think of God. Think of God protecting you, and it does work. It literally works, people. And also, according to Ben, this is almost unbelievable. It heals the ozone layer somehow. He claims that. So we'll see. But he's claiming that prayer does benefit your emotional issues dramatically. So if you're feeling stressed out, pray more.
I agree.
Okay, so is it the birth pangs? It seems like it. Are we able to declare any time frames? No, not at all. I'm showing you some interesting things. We know something's happening. What I want you to be able to do is look at things, come back, and you can ask me more details, or you can watch Ben Davidson every morning at 7:00 in the morning Central, and you can talk to Jason too. The main thing is, he's my second witness on this. That what we're talking about is actually factual, and it seems to be increasing, right, Jason?
That's right. Absolutely.
And so it's observable, it's scientific, and so the Bible is not a science book, but it does make the Bible look truthful, right, Jason?
Yeah, it does.
So the interesting thing is, as I've spent time with people watching auroras, they've come to a better faith, a better place, as a result of realizing the Bible is true. This is observable, it's testable. You can sink your teeth into what's going on in the world and realize God's there and in control. Jason, would you like to say anything before we leave?
You referred to me if you have other questions or would like to reach out to me in some way. The most reliable way to touch base with me would be on Twitter or X, and look me up on there. It's What the Truth. WHATHATRUTH. What the Truth.
That's how I found you. And then the other thing was, I wanted to have you mention, Jason, how you felt God was telling you that. So when I reached out to you, you felt, what was it? Would you describe that situation?
Yeah, I would. I was reading one of your comments on one of Ben's comments, and I felt the need to respond to your comment. And so as I was responding, I heard the Lord speak to me and tell me that I would get a response from that comment. And so I made the comment, went on about my business, and then like 2 hours later, I received the message from you about this opportunity. And like I told you, because of the word that I had gotten previously, I knew I couldn't turn down the opportunity. He put this in front of me for a reason. So that's why I'm here.
So God gave you the opportunity to discuss this tonight, and God's giving the opportunity to other people to witness to other people about what's happening in the world. So rather than being fearful and hysterical.
Hey, Talia, good to see you. Guys, I'm going to play Paul Begley next. I don't usually play Begley because unless it's mine from around the world, but he is on top of earthquakes and tornadoes and all that. I got to admit, he covers that pretty good. I don't even listen to his sermons, but he does cover that pretty good. So I was going to do him next. And if we're lucky, he might sing a song for Diane.
The Snooze End of Financial Year sale is on now. Save up to 50% off mattresses. Plus, for a limited time only, take an extra 10% off mattresses. Hurry, sale on now. Amazing what a little snooze can do.
East Coast Car Racers. It's as easy as. In this video, as last night. All right, guys, are you serious? Are you serious? I'm gonna be very serious in this video. As last night.
Yeah, Leslie, I'm going to you. I'm the one who likes his music.
And I had a dream.
Not enough to sit there and watch the whole song, but.
And Dr. Lester Summerall came to me in the dream. And said, Paul.
Okay, I didn't think it was going to be this.
Is coming. Tell them now. It is coming, he said. Tell.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Sorry, guys. What else can I look up now then? Hang on. Where's live videos? Yeah, that was it.
Judgment upon you for your bad judgment over the people. Okay, and then the John 10 passage.
This is a view from the bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
When are gods not gods? It depends on who you're asking about Psalm 82. And that's our topic of discussion this month on Iron and Myth. Well,
see, Diane, I give Paul a go to play him. And the first thing he says, this prophet of God come to him in a dream and said, I'm coming. As soon as I saw that, see you later, Paul.
Welcome to a view.
Did he mention the wasps to you, Paul?
From the bunker, I'm Derek Gilbert. Joining me, by the way, you'll notice we're in our makeshift studio here in our dining room. Once again, when we record in the evenings, our two dogs, our older dog, Grace, she's fine. She would come out with me to the barn. Every time I'm out there, she's there with me, and she's really good about being patient.
Yeah, if he sung me a song and bought me a cup of coffee, I probably would have watched him.
As I do what I got to do. But Glory, the puppy, not so much. So we're here in the house. She can't be trusted alone. And it may be that at some point during the upcoming discussion, they will be distracted by something outside that will require me to mute the microphone or maybe walk away from the camera to let them out, let them back in or whatever. But if that's not a distraction, we will plunge ahead. Episode 29 of our Iron and Myth Monthly Roundtable.
I'll be back, Leslie.
Our friendly neighborhood PhD, the director of the Institute of Biblical Anthropology, author of Interview with the Giant, Ethno-Historical Notes on the Nephilim, Dr. Judd Burton, the best-selling author and award-winning screenwriter whose latest book is described as a theological thriller, Cruel Logic. You'll find him online at Godawa.com. Brian Godawa, and the author of Giants, Sons of the Gods, the new 10th anniversary revised and expanded edition, and the pastor of the Reformed Baptist Church of Northern Colorado in Boulder, Doug Van Dorn. I think an excellent discussion for topic for discussion this month. As you can see, I'm still jet lagged after the 26 hours that it took to get home Monday into Tuesday. 45 hours awake because prior to getting to the airport, Aaron Lipkin took us to Mount Azazel. We saw where the scapegoat ritual was probably performed in the Judean desert.
No way! They know the Mount Azazel was on. Wow. Mount Hermon, I thought.
Brian, the sons of God in Psalm 82, it seems to us who are familiar with the divine council concept that this is pretty obvious that it refers to supernatural beings, but there are still some prominent.
Yeah, Talia, I agree. I reckon Paul does some good songs, like the Rattle and Bones, and he does some good songs. I like him.
Christian theologians who don't agree. What is the deal there? Why do they see that phrase as referring to humans?
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, I think we probably are the minority view, to be frank and honest about it, because most evangelicals actually have the argument that the sons of God in that passage are judges, or the gods in that passage are human judges. And that was one of the things that really inspired me to suggest this for the topic was,
hey, Phil, I was just thinking, where were you? I knew you were on your way home. Good to see you, mate.
We like to talk, we like to discuss these issues on the show, and there's so much exciting material we like to talk about and bring up, and oftentimes we can neglect to address.
Diane's secretly the president of Paul Begley's fan club. She's got every album and she's got all the posters on the wall. We busted you, Di.
The objections, and I just know that a good view is a view that's able to take some time and address objections, because it's natural that even if you agree with us, you're going to be confronting a lot of Christians who don't, and they're going to raise objections, and you need to be aware of what those are and how it interacts with your own views. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why I think we're doing this. And so what I did was, and I don't know if I'm going to refer.
Are you talking about when Mike from Around the World was on and someone put armor on Paul and he had long hair? We saw that. We actually had a chuckle over that at the time.
Any names, because I don't think that's as important as the ideas. But I did draw from some at least one evangelical scholar who's an apologist, and he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I actually have a great respect for him. James White, he's made some good arguments against our view that I feel like we need to address. But rather than just sort of counterpoint for what he's saying, I'll present the narrative in general of what I've come to understand from the various sources about this human judge's view, and then you guys can lead in on addressing that, because I think it's important. Like, we shouldn't just jump in piecemeal verse by verse, because that's not always helpful. We have to understand the narrative and how it flows over the whole picture, and then we can address it, because that's what we also do with ourselves, right? So I'm gonna address Psalm 82. And then we're going to ultimately end in John 10, because, of course, Jesus refers to that verse. But so roughly how I understand this view is,
Diane, we've had a good time in a lot of laughs, haven't we?
I want to present it in the Steelman view. I have no desire to undermine it. I want to actually understand what their view is,
guys.
As fairly as possible. And you guys can even jump in if I'm missing something or what have you. But so Psalm 82, as we know, begins with the phrase, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. And
that's the ESV translation.
It's actually teamwork here. Me and Di do the links and the videos, and everyone contributes with their opinions and that. So it's really well done how this is all set up, guys. And it's a team effort. It's all of us. There's about 10 of us that hang around full stop, and it's a good crew.
You're using there.
Fair enough, because the NASB is different, and there are other translations that definitely say judges rather than gods. But then it goes on to describe from 2 to 5, how long will you judge unjustly, show partiality to the wicked, give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, and rescue the weak and needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. In other words, this is definitely a claim about the the failure of these so-called gods to judge over these peoples. And then it says they have neither knowledge nor understanding. All the foundations of the earth are shaken, And then the classic verse, I said you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit the nations. So roughly how I think that the many of the human view of this, the people who believe this, they believe in the word the gods. When in verse 1 it says, the midst of the gods he holds judgment. First of all, the divine council, they'll argue that if you look at the word for council there, Ida, everywhere else in the Old Testament, it is used of a human council. And so there's that. And then the Council of El, the argument is that these are the judges in Israel who have been appointed by Moses in particular, or at least a reference to the origin of that. The human judges in Israel who are supposed to properly adjudicate the law of God, the Torah, over the Jews. And so then when it says how long will you judge unjustly, etc.? Well, this is what human judges do. They're supposed to judge between, help the afflicted and the weak and the fatherless and all that. As we know, the law of God actually says that, to do that. And so these judges are those human leaders or human judges. And just to quickly jump back into its origins, the origins of this, let's see if I may not have even put it down, did I? Do you guys know the passage about Moses? Yeah, I don't think I put it down here, unfortunately.
I think Exodus 21 and 22.
Yeah, Exodus 21, 22. In fact, do you have that? Can you jump to it? Because I don't have it.
Yeah, one of them is Exodus 21:6. Then his master shall bring him to God. Right. And he shall bring him to the door or the doorpost. And then the other one is Exodus 22:9, I think. For every breach of trust, whether it's for an ox, for a donkey, a sheep, a cloak, any kind of lost thing, of which one says, this is it, the case of both parties shall come before God. The one whom God condemns shall pay double to his neighbor. And that's reading from the ESV.
Yeah.
Thanks, boss.
I think, too, that... so is this bringing before God, or is this bringing before the judges who are helping? But earlier in Exodus, and that's where I don't have, unfortunately, it's where God is talking to Moses, what's his name, comes to Moses and says, Jethro comes to Moses and says, you can't handle all this. You need the help of these men who will be the leaders, and they will be judges who will help you adjudicate. And before that, earlier, I think it is in Exodus 4, again, for some reason, this was the one set of verses for some reason I can't find in my notes. So, but God says to Moses, you will be as God to them, or to Aaron, what is it, I think, and then Aaron will speak for you to the people. And so that's where they say that this notion of being God as the representative of God to the people, being referred to as a God, and that Moses was therefore referred to as God to the people. And, the view acknowledges that it's not literal, it's a representative, so it's symbolically. In other words, you will symbolically be God to the people. And so when the judges then take over or help Moses out, that status of representing God is taken over by them, and then they are called gods. And so we have those two passages in Exodus where it says, where you bring this before God. Well, actually it's before Elohim, and the claim is that you're bringing these before the judges because it's the judges who are adjudicating. So these judges are human judges, and there are these passages that have those that they claim refer to the word Elohim, where you see the word God, it actually is the word Elohim, and that those are human judges being called God. And so back in Psalm 82, these are the human judges that are supposed to be over Israel and be adjudicating justly, but they're not, and God is judging them. And then in verse 6, then I said, you are gods. This is you are gods to the people. You're representing me to the people. Sons of the Most High, all of you, nevertheless, like men, you shall die. And the idea there is that
Shawnee, you said if only we had judges who love our God. Instead, we got judges that are sending the poor people to jail. A lot of more people are going to jail who are poor than they are rich because they can afford legal people to help them, the guys who get charged that are rich. So the legal system's not set up for justice anymore. It's set up for profit. And God will come back and judge that system.
if these sons of God were divine, they don't die. But this is saying, well, you people who are you human judges who are my representatives as God to the people, you are unjustly ruling. You are a bad representative of God, and so therefore your death, nevertheless, that death, in other words, death will be the judgment upon you for your bad judgment over the people. Okay, and then the John 10 passage, which we'll of course be going into details of it, but John 10 sets up with this is where Jesus refers to this passage, and he's in early in John 10, 20 or 30, he says, I and the Father are one. And then it says the Jews picked up stones to stone him. And Jesus said, which of these many good works are you going to stone me? And they said, it's not for good works we're going to stone you, but for blasphemy, because you being a man, make yourself God. And so then Jesus answered and says, is it not written in your law? I said you are gods. If he called them gods to whom the word of God came, and scripture cannot be broken, do you say of him whom the Father consecrated and sent into the world, you are blaspheming because I said, I am the Son of God? And then he goes on to say, if I'm doing the works of the Father, then don't believe me. But if I do, then believe me and believe in the works. And understand that the Father is in me and I am in the Father. And again, they sought to arrest him, but he escaped from their hands. So the explanation for this,
twice he escaped the crowd's wrath for saying that.
Be honest, I was having a hard time grasping the viewpoint of human judges in this passage. But as best as I can understand it, they're saying they are claiming Jesus to be blasphemous by claiming to be God. But when he's quoting the scripture, he's quoting them. They are the leaders of Israel. They are judges. And he's quoting the scripture as in the same way God has called human judges and he judged them in Psalm 82. So you are unrighteous in rejecting me as having this unique Son of God status. And so in other words, he's connecting that human judging with the human judges that he's condemning as well. So by quoting this passage, Psalm 82, he's saying you will be judged in the same way that they're judged because you rejected me and I'm that much higher. If some of you guys can do better than that, that's the best that I was able to pick up from that viewpoint. But that's kind of how I see the basic narrative of this notion that when the Bible uses Elohim in some places, it's referring to human judges, not to divine beings like the Divine Council worldview says. Is that pretty good? Or
yeah, I would only say one other thing, which is in the John 10 passage when it says the word of God came, that they do not see that as referring to Psalm 82, but to Mount Sinai.
Yes.
And Mount Sinai being when Jethro, established them to be judges.
Yes. Good point, yeah.
So even though it's a direct quote from Psalm 82:6, they don't see it as coming from Psalm 82:6.
Gotcha. No, that's an excellent point, yeah. So the word of God that he's talking about is that the Torah.
Torah, yeah. Torah coming on Mount Sinai.
Yeah. I mean, the way I've heard it explained, when I've heard it addressed at all, it's not even at that level. It's just a very surface level thing. I mean, Jesus is talking to the Jews who want to stone him, and he said, I said you are gods. So he's clearly talking to humans, so it must be about humans. I mean, that's really surface level.
Yeah.
And it's logically
that's the basic argument.
Yeah, and it's logically inconsistent because if you, if he's saying, okay, you're gods, so I'm a
Did you go
god.
back down?
He's a god. She's a god.
Did you
Wouldn't
go
you like
back
to be
down?
a god too? We can
down.
all Jews can
Drop
claim
one
to be
off and
gods,
go back down.
but then why are they trying to stone him for claiming to be deity? Because they understood that he was blaspheming in their minds. They understood that he was claiming to be the Father. So if he is in fact making that claim, and then how is this consistent with that? That logically it is incoherent. It's not the way they were understanding the conversation. We're trying to impose, I think, a 21st century view on that.
And by the way, this it's also a lot of apologetics guys deal with this because Mormons will refer to this, and so they often will lump in the divine council worldview with Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses. But to be fair, there was, from what I've read, there was an understanding or recognition that Heiser was not saying the same thing, and that they understood that he had argued against Mormons. But nevertheless, also from a reputed apologist, I read his argument or addressing Psalm 82 when he says, well, when it talks about them judging with the destitute and the widows,
Okay, Shawnee, God
who
bless.
else does this just judging except human judges? Unless you're going to posit some fantasy scenario of gods over nations judging, something to that effect. And I had to laugh because I'm like, well, yeah.
It's kind of what the Bible says. It's like the Genesis 6 scenario anymore. Angels can't cohabit with human women, except the Bible tells us right here that it does. Well, except for that.
The phrase you used, though, was actually, unless you're going to propose a cosmic, a cosmic scenario or something like that, where it's like, yeah, that's the point. The cosmic scenario is exactly the point. So, but I mean, to be fair, I really think this is something that we do have to address. Are these references in Exodus and such, and calling Moses God, to Aaron and such, how do you address that? How do you answer those actual scriptural claims?
Well, Judd, as your dissertation was done at the foot of the Canaanite Mount Olympus, where the Canaanite divine council sort of met. I mean, this concept shouldn't this be familiar to Christian theologians? I mean, as Mike Heiser used to say, hey, guess what? The prophets and the apostles read books.
You would think so, but I think one thing that we have to factor in is the amount of time that's transpired since those events at the foot of Mount Hermon, and even into the Old Testament. But we've literally had 2 millennia of theological process and theological debate on these issues, and that's a pretty big venue for the issue to get muddled down in, and especially after thinkers like Augustine and Julius Africanus come onto the scene. So I think that's maybe, it might be somewhat marginal to what we're talking about, but I think because we've had so much time, we speaking as Christian apologists and thinkers and theologians and whatnot, we've had that much time to make some gains in our understanding of it, but also to kind of muddy the issue, I think. And we also have to take into account the ebb and flow of advances and regressions in some cases that we've made in our ability with the languages in order to facilitate those translations and better understanding. I think the last 25 to 50 years has been nothing short of revolutionary in the gains that we've made in terms of understanding this. But I think that in this general debate, something that we overlook is the ability for all of that time and discussion to kind of muddy the waters since its original context. But yeah, you would think that a lot of this stuff would be implicit in an interview that I was talking in earlier today. I think one of the issues at fault here is just the decline in biblical literacy that we're witnessing kind of in our own age, on a kind of popular level, but also the neglect and peripheralization of pertinent material towards debates like the one that we're discussing today.
The early church was, because the early church fathers had this understanding that the gods of their
Okay, Leslie, good night. God bless. Good to see you again.
pagan neighbors, yeah, the gods of their pagan neighbors were real,
I would certainly hope so.
lesser Elohim, fallen entities, some of them anyway, who had rebelled against God. We stumbled on another example today in our weekly Bible study. Sharon and I were reading Proverbs 9, which in the ESV reads verse 18. And this is a warning about following after the foreign woman, the forbidden woman, and the adulteress. He does not know that the dead are there, but that word is actually Rephaim in the Masoretic text, and that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. He does not know that the Rephaim are there. But interestingly, in the Septuagint, which was the Greek translation done by, 200 BC or thereabouts, it's translated, but he is unaware that the shades meet their death by her. But the word translated shades in Greek is gigantis. Forgive my pronunciation.
Gigantus.
Which means earthborn.
Gigantus.
And that's really interesting because earthborn is an epithet of the Titans, the old gods who've been banished and sent down to the netherworld by Zeus and the Olympians in the fake news version. Earthborn because the Titans were born of Gaia, Mother Earth. So and there are other examples in the Old Testament, but that just comes to mind as an example of how Jewish religious scholars in the Second Temple period and the early church, at least until the time of Augustine, understood this overlap. So when you're dealing with this divine council concept from Psalm 82, and you're talking about the gods, the early church didn't have a problem with that concept.
Yeah, I do think that it's important that we acknowledge that and that we understand that. And I think that there's some weight to that. But to be fair, the early church had a lot of bad doctrines. And so, which is why I always think that the early church is an argument, for your view, at least having some weight to it, in terms of traditionally, or say, maybe. But it's not the final say, of course, because we all agree Scripture is the final say. And if the early church was really off, including some of the great guys like Augustine and Irenaeus, etc., they were off on other doctrines very, very poorly. So it's fair to at least say, I think, there's a lot of value in the early church, but it's not if it's proven wrong scripturally, then the early church was wrong, and I'm okay with that because, like I say, this is an issue of other doctrines that I have to deal with and such. So, but still, I still think it's valuable because you then have to explain, well, how is it that they understood it that way? The ancient mind did, and I do think that, like I said, that has weight. But if we go back to the origin, the beginning, Moses. I'm looking at this. I did find the verse finally. Yay! Exodus 4:16, and God is speaking to him. He says, "He shall speak to you for you to the people." Speaking of Aaron, I'm sorry. Yeah. God is telling Moses, Aaron shall speak to you for the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him. And the other verse is Exodus 7:1. The Lord said to Moses, I've made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. And I think that it is very significant that he's not calling him God. He's saying you shall be as God, you shall be like God. And that's in the Hebrew. It's not just an addition of the English, which means he's not calling him God. He is, of course, and this is where we would agree with human view. We do agree on the representation aspect, that God chooses Moses to represent him, and in that sense, he's as God to him, but he's not called God. And I think that's very critical to our view. And then the second step is, therefore, when he talks about the the human judges who help Moses, if you look there, Moses set to judge the people, Exodus 18. And then I'm sorry, Exodus 21, 1-6. You're supposed to bring these people before God, who you're referring to. So there's a couple things. First of all, there's no actual description of being in the court, but still, I think it's fair to it could be fair to assume that it is a reference to the court. But when it says bringing him to God, what that means is I don't believe that he's calling the judges God. What he's doing is, when you're coming into the, like we have in the modern day, when you're in the court, you are before God. You're not saying the judge is God.
Is that Israel doing that, Diane?
You're just saying God in his ultimate authority is behind that court. And so you are standing and you're speaking before God himself. And even we talk about that in those words. And so I would suggest that the Exodus passages where it's talking about bring him before God, it's talking about Yahweh, which most translations do use the singular of reference to Yahweh, and rather than the plural of Elohim in terms of multiple judges, I guess is the point. Mm-hmm. And so, in other words, nowhere are the judges actually called God. And the passages where it's talking about bringing him to God, it's the God is who's behind the judges, because he's the ultimate authority. And that's how I look at it. I don't know if you guys can bring any other enlightening aspects to it.
So to me, there's a giant elephant in the room that I think I want to address, because when I first discovered this from Mike in his writings, early on,
that's like something out of Nazi Germany, isn't it?
15 years ago, whenever he was writing about it, he contextualized Psalm 82 for me. So I wasn't just coming at it from Psalm 82 and an exegesis of it. I was coming at it from his whole point of two powers in heaven. And to me, this is massively, massively huge, because there's something.
Diane, they'll take that link down. As soon as they realize that link's up, they'll take it down.
That happened in our history that is not being acknowledged in this discussion. And that's what the Jews, the rabbis did in the 2nd century regarding the two powers, when they made it a heresy for anyone to believe in it. Mm-hmm. And the ramifications of that are that they actually changed text in their own scripture, and they reinterpreted other things to fit a naturalized view, whereas prior to that, you have a supernatural view. So, like if you were to go and read the Targum of Psalm 82:1, you will see that it's talking about judges instead of gods. And so you can argue, well, see, that's a very old view, and that's what it was. But the Targum in this case is, at least 2nd century, probably later, and very likely is reflecting the two powers in heaven controversy in terms of the rabbinical side of it. And so if you don't take into account how massive this shift was in Judaism, from a binitarianism to a Unitarianism, from a supernatural view that was tolerated and was viewed as an undercurrent within Judaism, to something that became absolute heresy, and if you ever believe it, you are kicked out forever. Like, that's such a huge shift. If we're not accounting for that, then we're not able to understand at least the possible origins of where something like this idea of rulers could have come from. In other words, is it really coming from an exegetical reading of Elohim? So to go to Elohim, I think it's really important to point out that this word appears like thousands of times in the Old Testament. And of all of those thousands of times, you've got less than 5 on one hand that they point to say that this word could possibly mean judges. Right. And yet in the BGAD lexicon, rulers becomes the #1 definition for this word. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, you should have no other gods before me. Am I supposed to interpret that as rulers or something like that?
Hi, JD. Welcome. Good to see you, mate. It
makes no sense to me. So the overwhelming evidence of the use of the word Elohim also needs to be taken into account. And only after those two things are appreciated and understood do I think that it makes a lot of sense to try and enter into a discussion on Psalm 82 and, you know, the Exodus passages and being like Moses or whatever. Because if you go and read James White's article on this, you'll see that he mentions the two powers, but he has absolutely no idea what it even means. Yeah. And it's like, to me, if you could make that groundwork, which is what really Mike did for all of us in the way that he presented it to us, all of a sudden you're creating a context that allows you to understand why you have such radically different views of something like Psalm 82.
Yeah, and each one of these sentences in Psalm 82 is rooted in other scriptures, you know, and that's the problem of any big picture, you know, paradigm that you're trying to communicate. It's like these are connected to other things that all point to what we're saying, you know, and that's the difficulty, I think, for any of you, you know, but
yeah, to me, like I said last time with Psalm 29, how Christological that psalm is, that's really where I would start with folks, with Psalm 82. That Psalm 82:8 gives you the context, not of Israel, but of the world. So arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. Well, that's got to be coming out of the psalm. It's not just coming out of nowhere.
That's the
and
context.
So when you start, and I wanted to point people to Mike's paper that he wrote in the Farms Review. You can find this online. And he wrote an article called "You've Seen One Elohim, You've Seen Them All, a critique of Mormonism's use of Psalm 82, where he goes through and just, lays out all the exegetical arguments you could ever want for Psalm 82. That work's been done, and it's there for people to go and read. And I really recommend that they find that if they're really interested in searching deeper into this. But that's where I would start with people and say, look, this is an expansion of the promise of Psalm 2, where ask of me and I will make you the nations your inheritance. And now in Psalm 82, he will inherit all the nations. And so it's Christological, and everything needs to be read in terms of that and the international scope of what's going on there, to make it a Christ-centered psalm instead of whatever else people are trying to do with it. I think that's also important.
By the way, just that little interlude where I walked away is because our two dogs noticed the volunteer firemen over at the firehouse across the road. They were going berserk here. I muted my microphone so you couldn't hear it, but
I thought you were just, really upset with what I was saying.
No. They are outside now telling the firemen that if they come over here, they're going to give them peace of their mind, like they do to the postman and the Amazon delivery and the guy and the UPS delivery guy and the FedEx. So. Yeah, it's quite entertaining, but not conducive to conducting discussions. So the bottom line for me, this is kind of hubristic that we in the 21st century are trying to tell Hebrew speakers that they don't know what their words mean, because as you point out, Doug, Elohim means gods everywhere else. This is one of the reasons that we look at the Septuagint, Sharon and me, when we do our Old Testament readings, because it's instructive to know what Jewish religious scholars prior to the 2nd century AD thought about their Old Testament. And the Septuagint rendering of Psalm 82, God stood in the assembly of the gods, and in the middle he judges the gods. And it's clear that they understood what that means, because the word is theoi, or theon. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a great point, Derek, because the Septuagint is using gods as its language, and then all of a sudden you come to the later Targum and it's radically changed it to rulers. You have to ask the question, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think pertinent to this discussion too is a methodological issue that I think Mike was really adept at. Mike Heiser, I think he was really adept at doing was, you know, presenting this stuff in the context of the ancient world, the ancient mode of thinking, what idioms were in place, what cultural norms were in place. And it's easy even for scholars to enter into this research and discussion with their own biases and own projections. It makes me think about one of the first historiographical lectures I ever heard. In sort of mosaic fashion, the professor was telling us about the crimes that you should try and not commit as a historian. And the chief one was presentism, this projection of your own world onto the context of whatever period that you're dealing with. And that's why it's valuable to understand these kinds of contexts and to use things like the Septuagint as a clarifying lens, so to speak, in order to negate or minimize the kind of presentism that can easily be pushed onto these ancient contexts and ancient words. And it takes all kinds of scholarship to help us to do that, you know, philologists and linguists and archaeologists and historians and theologians and whatnot. But that's
okay, guys. It's a little bit slow, and I've got an hour to go. This still goes for another hour nearly. So I thought I'd mix it up a bit and put prophecy with stand up and a couple other short ones like that.
Left in the counting of the Omer because the counting of the Omer ends June the 13th. Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I've got a very important program for you today. I'm going to be covering three things. The first one is America's proxies cleared to attack Russia, and the Russian reason to attack America, and death of the dollar, and how the elite can form a world government. First of all, we are watching. The Jerusalem Post may or may not be the newspaper that actually carries this, but we're watching for the headline, Omer ushers in Palestinian state to appear. It may or may not appear this year, but nevertheless, we're watching it, as you're probably watching this on about or around the 18th, or excuse me, the 27th, which gives us 18 days left in the counting of the Omer, because the counting of the Omer ends June the 13th. All right. Also, if you have a bunch of money piled up someplace you don't want to lose, I'm going to suggest you call 800-200 Gold. Get their opinion to make sure that you still think you have it in the best place. Also, if you want to eat in the treble head, I'll send you to josephskitchen.com.
Okay, Phil. Good night, mate.
S there, josephskitchen.com. Also, it's summertime, and every summertime, our mailbox fills up with concrete. So, if God has blessed you, you can help us now. It'll be a really good time to do so. Okay, the first point, the Russian reason to attack America, and they now have actually two of them. Here's a new one. Second time American proxies have attacked Russia. Blinken officially now authorizes Ukraine to attack inside Russia. Okay, so apparently the weapons and the money that we were sending to Ukraine could only be used inside Ukraine.
Wow, if that's true.
Because it's still attacking the Russians.
Wow.
And I could see where America could say, yeah, well, you know, you shouldn't be on Ukraine property. But now America has allowed Ukraine, one of our proxies now, that's the way the Russians can look at it, to attack Russia. So here is this. As soon as American metal, American explosives lands on Russia's ground, and that's now apparently
A done deal.
days away. As soon as that hits, now Russia can say, now we have another reason why we could say they attacked us first. We have another reason to why we can now attack America. Here's what it says here. So the yellow dot is the same place on this map and on this map. So you can kind of get the understanding of what we're talking about. So this is saying that any of the American weapons down here in now Ukraine, it can reach out to this amount far. Now the reason I say that is because what they're saying is they can reach within 100 miles of Moscow. So as soon as an American piece of metal or one of our explosives lands on Russia, all of a sudden Russia can take out America and they can say to the rest of the world, wait a minute, they attacked us first. We had a good reason. So this is a big problem. The article goes on to say, once Ukraine begins using, for instance, extended range HIMARS to hit targets inside Russia, the Russians can now say the U.S. directly authorized the attacks, and as such, both Ukraine and the United States have attacked Russia. So,
Barry, I'm very pro-Russia in this war. They've done everything right. The war with Bill Clinton and Yugoslavia, that was to let NATO into Yugoslavia, and they said they wouldn't go there. That Bill Clinton took them there. They brought in weapons to Ukraine, which is right on Russia's border. And look what happened when Russia tried to install missiles in Cuba in the 60s. America put on a blockade and wouldn't let it happen, but they expect Russia to let them put NATO right on their doorstep. Such hypocrites.
That gives them authority to attack us. The Russians repeatedly and publicly warned the U.S. and NATO. Now listen,
Vass, he said it's going to be radiated. He didn't say the word atomic bomb, but he did say radiated.
Just careful. That such a decision would result in Russian attacks against the decision make.
Barry, it's still the same here, but we still got one right-wing channel that is good, like Fox News used to be good. Remember how they were good with Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and that? We've got one channel that still reports good stuff like that. The rest have gone really badly left.
King centers of the nations that do this. What did that just say? It said it gives us the authority to attack them.
And Vass, did you see the UK's going to election and the guys in power, one of their policies is forced nationalisation, like you got to join the army. It's dead set a draft and you got to go to the army. That's what they're putting up on their voting platform.
America. And the decision-making centers, well, it's pretty broad. Okay, they could just about say any city in America. Blinken has just set the stage.
Sky News, I'll find a link for you.
For our country to be attacked because of what he is doing. I think this is the hand of God, and I think that this is going to come back and bite us real bad. You remember, Revelation 6:2, 3, and 4, talking about the two angels. The angel on the white horse had a bow and a crown was given him. He went forth conquering and to conquer. That's war. The angel on the second horse, power was given him to set thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. Now, Byron Searle, Vicky Goforth Parnell, and Terry Bennett, all three credible sources, all say we are now in the tribulation. I'm not ready to say it yet. However, if the tribulation starts with the opening of the first seal, as I have thought for many years, we could be. I'm not ready to say we are yet, but what I am ready to say is it appears these two angels are causing the judgment of God to fall on the earth. Another article. Biden drains entire Northeast gasoline reserve in bid to lower gas prices as he trails Trump by double digits. I don't think that's the real reason. I think if this headline was telling the truth, it would say Biden drains entire Northeast gasoline.
I think that's the wrong link. This is the right one.
Reserve and bid to remove our energy wartime oil reserves. So we are we are actually putting American metal, American bombs on Russian soil, and our president is draining our reserves. He sent most, if not all of, truth be known, many of our weapons and our money that we would normally use to defend ourselves over to Ukraine. And they've been given to a bunch of clowns, putting it nicely, that don't know what they're doing, and they have wasted them. So we've sent Ukraine our excess money, our excess, or maybe not even our excess, military devices that should be used to protect us. In other words, we are getting pretty close to defenseless. Next article, breaking news. China says the Japanese people will be dragged into a fiery hell. What? Those are fighting words. Those are words of war. You don't use those kind of words when you're trying to get along. You use those kind of words when you're trying to start a war. So there's a lot of people trying to start a war. Now, one article I read said the reason China is doing this because China is losing control. Remember, Chris Reed, I read at the end of the last couple of programs, had a dream, or I guess it was a vision, where he saw that the underground church will have above ground results and there's going to be an internal revolution and the Chinese communists are going to be kicked out. And of course, that fits with what Dmitry was told because God is going to raise up China to go against the Russians when the Russians attack us. The point is, this looks like the bad guys in China trying to keep control by causing a war, and that's, of course, what the evil deep state does. The article says Chinese ambassador to Japan publicly announced the Japanese people will be dragged into a fiery hell after Japan pledged support to Taiwan. The ambassador has already been summoned to the Taiwan Foreign Ministry. Here's what Hal Turner says about it. Wow, that language is so unusual. No, that's war language. Them's fighting words. So unusual as to be completely unknown coming from any China official. Seems as though old animosities are surfacing in Asia. This is not the language used by diplomats, and I agree. These are fighting words. So are we getting close to a time when we might see a major war or maybe America attack?
Barry, that was a joke on Fast Sixth Seal. Sixth Seal, I put in Sixth Seal instead. Wasn't a very funny joke. They don't always go right.
I think so. I don't think it's this year, but there's a lot of reasons it's lining up. And here's another. Italy introduces a bill for compulsory military service. 18 to 26-year-olds, men and women. It says 6 months of civil or military service for young men, 18 to 26, both men and women. Men go military, women go civil.
Yeah, that's right. It was a sick joke. There was no punchline.
The service will be carried out exclusively in Italy. Yeah, well, it may start in Italy, but don't think it's going to stay there because you remember this one? Covered this about a week ago. 90,000 NATO troops have begun moving. That sounds like war. The British government wants the public to know it's coming to an actual war. They say it is a war. The West is deliberately set up and is deliberately escalating, and I agree. Germany may begin conscripting 18-year-olds next month to prepare for war. And they hint that UK is also about to do it. So those are the primary people other than America in NATO. So NATO, you can't dodge it. It's getting ready for war. Now let's go to the next topic, death of the dollar. I know I keep...
Okay, and I'm pretty sure Diane posted a link. Was that you, Diane? Asia has signed up the BRICS. You posted that, didn't you, Diane? Or did I see it on YouTube?
Yes, but there's more and more information backing up what Shane Warren told us and others. From Benjamin Fulford, paperwork for a new international system is being drawn up as satanic rule implodes. Now, my white hat banker explained it to me this way. He said there is a white hat system that is trying to come on. At the same time, there is a satanic financial system trying to come on. The white hats believe that they will be able to bring theirs out first and I agree with that. But I think it'll be short-lived before the Satanists take it back. And we know that they take it back because that is the reason he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and blind, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their forehead, and then no man might by ourselves say he had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. So that is coming online. The article says, lawyers and bankers are drawing up documents for a new international system that will be phased out starting this autumn and going into 2025. That's exactly what we've been thinking too. This work is necessary because if the details are not worked out properly, huge problems will emerge as things snowball into massive world changes. This fine-tuning requires time. What needs to be made clear, though, is that this is not going to be a transfer of power from one secret evil satanic group to another evil secret satanic group. This could be the white hats. The new system will be handed over to the people that, quote, the meek shall inherit the earth. Well, actually, it would be Proverbs 13:22, the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. He's got the wrong, he's trying to quote scripture, but he got the wrong verse there. Anyway, go on. In the meantime, satanic rules-based world order, will continue to implode. Only temporarily. This means we're going to experience a lot of turbulence as the last of the Satanists struggle desperately to keep control of the planet and to avoid war crimes tribunals. I do think the war crimes tribunals are mentioned in prophecy. Let's go on. J.P. Morgan is warning the S&P 500 is probably going to drop 21% by the end of 2024. You see how that fits? See, we're looking at the old financial system going bye-bye and the new white hat system coming on. The forecast from J.P. Morgan's chief market strategist is one of the most pessimistic on Wall Street. He and his peers see the S&P 500 ending the year at 4,200. That's the lowest year-end target among the Wall Street banks, and from current levels, that implies a more than 21% drop. That does fit with what we see. With very high equity valuations, we do not see equities as attractive investments at the moment, and we don't see...
Okay, tell you, the white hats are the good guys. They got the white hats in some of them Middle Eastern country where war's going on, and the white hats come in and save the day. I don't know how legit if they are white hats, though, or if they're just another sneaky move by the black hats.
A reason to change our stance. I can't give you financial advice. I recommend you call 1-800-200-GOLD, talk to these people. What are my options? If I got a pile of money in an IRA or 401k or in the bank or market or something that's paper, it's a smart idea to get it into gold or silver in a location where...
I forgot about that. Let's go, Brandon, instead of F off Biden.
You could drive to it and pick it up. Next article. The process of digitally marking every human is well underway, but how many humans are even aware of where this is leading? Leo's newspaper. Megabank JP Morgan gearing up to launch broad biometric payment system. What's biometric? It means that biometrics would be your eye print, your fingerprint.
Yeah, well said, Barry, because who's in charge of these white hats? And, you know, as if the white hats are going to set up a system, the good guys, an economic system. The system's already okay. So they're going to set it up and the black hats are just going to come in and take it. They're not very good white hats then, are they?
Your voice.
They can't fight.
In other words, something that absolutely, positively, 100% identifies you. So they're not going to be taking your credit card. You're not going to be using a PIN code, a personal identification number. Instead, they scan some part of your body. That's what they say. So the megabank JP Morgan Chase is planning to roll out a biometric system and make it available to all U.S. retailers by when? By early next year. Isn't that what the other things are all saying too? See, they're all saying, matter of fact, I talked to my white hat bank. I told you that.
Barry, what does IKR mean? I don't know, brother.
I spent 45 minutes with him 2 days ago. And he said, you remember I told you back in October, this thing is going to go forward in April, May. Now, He said it could go any day. Now, what is the it? I'm not exactly certain. If I did know, I probably couldn't say. But it's all saying we're right at the door. That's my point. It's not over the horizon. It's not someday it's coming. It's not at the end of the block. It might be here in a few months. It could be ringing our doorbell. It could be happening, well, by the time you are watching it.
Yeah.
So anyway, this will enable shoppers to make purchases without pulling physical paper or fiat currency or plastic credit cards out of their wallets. Oh yes, it's so much trouble to pull cash out of our billfold or purse or use that old terrible plastic. We want to use our biometrics. Wrong. Actually, we don't. Most people don't want them to have their biometrics. It's the evil deep state. So then no man buy or sell save he had the mark of the name of the beast, okay? All they need to do is to submit to having their palms or faces scanned upon entry into a retail store. I assume that that's the way it'll come, okay? So you walk up to go into your favorite store. Only now, you got to stand in line. You got to get your palm, probably, your face, and maybe even fingerprint scan. But anyway, they'll have a way, it's 100%, scan you, and then they link that to your whatever bank account. That is, as long as the bank accounts are there, all right? That should be a wake-up call for anyone familiar with the Bible prophecies. It does. Regarding an end times beast system that forbids anyone to buy or sell without being marked by some sort of tracking technology. Revelation 13:15 to get into that. In the article, he says that Identity Solutions, this Prashant Sharma, does that sound like the name of a good Christian? Well, maybe he is. I hope he is, but a good Christian would be pushing this. As saying, we would like every merchant to adopt this, but at the end of the day, it is going to be a merchant's choice. Yeah, right. Maybe a merchant's choice in the beginning. But the day is going to come where if you don't bend the knee, you don't take the mark, you don't have a head. Merchant then goes on to explain why almost all merchants will end up choosing to go down this dystopian, that means real bad, route and adopt the technology. Well, everybody on earth is, except those people whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, Revelation 13 says. Here are a few trending statistics provided in the article. Right now, just 1 in 4 Americans, as in 25%, are comfortable using a biometric hand scanner for payment. I'm going to say it's less than that. It should be 0. The numbers are higher in other countries. In other words, the more Christian they are, the less they want their biometrics used. Most people, the one thing that almost everybody that knows, that reads the Bible, the one thing that they know is they know about the mark of the beast. When it comes to prophecy, they almost all know. They don't know too much about it, but they've heard about the mark of the beast. So the people that have heard don't want their face taken, their voice taken, their print taken, their hand taken. They don't want all that. They know it's tracking. The numbers are higher in other countries, with 50% Canadian and British consumers being open to adopting biometric payment systems. We don't want them. While U.S. consumer confidence in facial recognition biometrics, quote, remains high, I think that's baloney, for security purposes. He said support for the use of this technology in retail settings has fallen significantly in recent years. If Americans knew just how insidious this technology is, they would not support it in any environment, whether for law enforcement or security purposes or for retail purposes or to buy or sell or to keep your head. So you've got to ask yourself, what hill do you die on? Well, the hill I'm going to die on is when they ask me to betray my Jesus. That ain't going to happen. I think, as other observers do, that these consumer attitudes are a function of familiar.
Okay, I'm on board with these rules of getting your money until it comes down to denying Jesus. And that's when I won't be doing it.
Familiarity, which is why they will change quickly. The more exposed consumers are to the biometrics at point of sale, the more comfortable they will be with this technology. I'm not going to be comfortable with it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So you're not going to buy or sell? Yeah, there'll probably be a...
Yeah, it's just too risky taking anything into your body, isn't it, Diane? The Bible does say, let he who has wisdom understand. right hand, left hand, either way, it's not a good thing to take. Completely agree. I will not be letting anything under my skin.
Point where I won't buy or sell. Now,
I didn't let the vax under my skin, so I'm certainly not going to let the mark of the beast there.
I already read this a couple of times the last couple of days. I don't think I have to read the whole thing again. But the point I want to make here is, in this dream, she was shown that all cash is gone. No dollar bills or change, only credit cards. All cash is gone. And it says, and due to current events, your cash money no longer is accepted in America. Well, it's not just America, it's going to be around the globe. And this is coming very soon. Now, confirming that, Cuban banking system has collapsed. Now, this dated May 15th. Apparently, Cubans are reporting on social media that their money is gone from their accounts, the ATMs. They even broke into some banks to get some cash, and there was no cash in any of the vaults. In other words, cash and coins.
Yep.
Apparently.
That's so
I've got
true.
another confirmation on this.
Especially their swords are going to chop our heads off, die. I don't know why I'm laughing, because that's going to happen.
Maybe somebody give me a confirmation. It's probably hard to get information out of Cuba. But apparently, all cash and coins have been removed from the island of Cuba. Now, think about it. If that's true, if they've really done that to Cuba, then guess what that's also saying? It's coming to a bank near you.
I can't hear that again. I was laughing. I missed the beginning. This is when Cuba's bank shut. Is that what he's talking about?
Social media that their money is gone from their accounts. The ATM is gone. No dollar bills or change, only credit cards. All cash is gone. And it says, and due to current events, your cash money no longer is accepted in America. Well, it's not just America, it's going to be around the globe. And this is coming very soon. Now, confirming that, Cuban banking system has collapsed. Now, this dated May 15th. Apparently, Cubans are reporting on social media that their money is gone from their accounts, the ATMs. They even broke into some banks to get some cash, and there was no cash in any of the vaults. In other words, cash and coins, apparently. I haven't got another confirmation on this. Maybe somebody give me a confirmation on it. It's probably hard to get information out of Cuba. But apparently, all cash and coins have been removed from the island of Cuba. Now, think about it. If that's true, if they've really done that to Cuba, then guess what that's also saying? It's coming to a bank near you. Now, think about it. If they want to make it.
They done this to one of the South American banks. They dipped in and took 10% of the savings. Whoever had savings, they took 10% with no permission. They just come in and took it. I'm not sure which country, but it was something like Brazil. So it wasn't like a backward country compared to South America. But, yeah.
Everybody go to a digital currency, that'd be a pretty good way. When all of a sudden, come Monday morning, there's no cash in the banks. There's no ATMs that work. The plastic does not work. Everybody got to sign up for this new digital currency. Okay. But we're going to buy or sell, we got to sign up for that digital currency. And part of the plan also is within that new banking system, in that new account that you'll get, they already place a pretty large sum of money. So you're sort of bribed to go to the new system. Now, never mind, that might be only a month or two's worth of income. Well, let's go on. The Cuban people had left their financial anyway. Cubans are forced to adopt the digital banking system. Basically, is gone. Now, next topic. You may be thinking, how in the world could the elite possibly make America and the other countries of the world go into a world government? Well, Revelation does say, and they give their power and strength unto the beast until the words of God should be fulfilled. Okay, so all of the sovereign nations will give their power.
Oh, you have them too, do you? Okay.
Means military, their political, everything they have control over the world government. How are you going to do that? That's not going to be an easy task. Here it is. Revelation 13 says, all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. There is a world government coming. That's not the only verse that says it. Dozens of Republican governors signed a letter opposing the pandemic treaty. Now, what's it saying? So the World Health Organization has come up with legislation they're asking all nations to sign. And it basically says this: if there's another pandemic, we take control of your nation. Essentially, that's what it's going to say. All we have to do is wait for another pandemic, and boom, they form a world government. Now, when do you think that they might release the next pandemic? Well, the truth is, I don't know, and neither do you. But my guess would be on or about 150 days between now and November 5th. That would be a good time. Let's read the article. So it says they plan to undermine national sovereignty and states' rights. States, we don't like it. We seek to elevate the WHO, I'll just say that, from an advisory body to a global authority. What they're saying is this would give them strength, power and strength, to be the world government. It would create a global surveillance infrastructure and force participants to censor free speech. These are the states that have signed a letter, May 22, to our president, Joseph R. Biden Jr. And it says, we, the states, don't agree with this. We think you're forming a world government out of this. Now, you remember that Chris Reed was given a newspaper headline that said, America in pieces, more states secede from the nation in rebellion to the federal government. Could it be that this is the issue that's going to start making some 49 other states have agreed with Texas over the border deal? This article goes to say, under the proposed amendments and treaty, the WHO's Director General would supposedly gain unilateral power to declare a public health emergency of international concern in member nations, you got to sign, you got to agree, okay? Extending beyond pandemics, so it's not just a pandemic, to include a range of perceived emergencies, the governors added. The proposals could erode state sovereignty by granting the WHO's Director General the authority to dictate responses to a declared pandemic, stripping elected representatives of the role in setting public, in other words, forming a world government. How's that working? You remember that Chris was given all these headlines? You look at headline number 7, America in pieces as the states begin to secede. So this could be the forming of the world government. And the reason the states secede, and a lot of this stuff, I think they have planned for 24, 25. Let me talk about our 3 sponsors briefly. First, if you want to get gold or silver, we're going to send you to 800-200-GOLD or prophecyclubgold.com. prophecyclubgold.com. Second, if you want to get long-term emergency food, the only place I would send you to is josephskitchen.com. It is what I believe is God's long-term storage food. As you recall, Pharaoh and Joseph, what fed the world for 7 years was wheat. Most of your long-term storage places, $9,000 to $10,000 to feed one person for 1 year. Joseph's Kitchen can show you how to do it for about $1,000.
Okay. He's plugging his stuff. Hang on, I had something lined up. Where is it? Here it is.
Straightforward health insurance from AHM. It's a no-brainer.
AHM. Wonderful world they have in store for you and I, my friend. The wonderful world they have in store for you and I, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're doing better than what we're going to be seeing soon here, because indeed it's looking interesting, my friends. We have, of course, people stepping down. We have GOVs putting out interesting pamphlets and new websites that you're going to definitely want to see. We're going to get into that. Canada and UK telling you that something may, of course, be happening soon here. Why would they be telling you that? Like, for example, Canada, they have a thing called disruptions on, of course, the horizon, they're talking about this, my friends. We'll get into that in a second. You have, of course, restaurants and every other store closing left and right. Applebee's closing locations, tons of locations. TGI Friday, Dollar Tree. I mean, honestly, pretty much everybody's closing up shop around you at this point, closing a quarter of their locations, half their locations, all their locations. Like 3 different mall stores just recently went out of business completely. And we're seeing all this happening around us right now, my friends. And what's interesting is we now have, of course, a number of people stepping down. You remember that one guy from the forum, Klaus? He stepped down. I'm sure you probably already heard that. But what's interesting is all the other people as well, and all the things that are sort of in the same realm happening. The GOVs.
I reckon they're going behind the scenes. They're not going out of the influence yet.
UK Canada doing something. I'll show you that in a second. And we actually have more. We actually have multiple things I'm going to show you in this video. There's like about 4 or 5 big things. But for example, we have Chase CEO Jamie Dimon talking like he's going to step down, while at the same time he sold a ton of shares recently. We have Billy Boy, the computer guy, the guy that owns the computer software company, the one that's probably on that created your Windows, for example, that company. That guy sold a ton of his stocks recently. Warren Buffett as well, all out of nowhere, buying up farmland, probably got some bunker somewhere. And once you saw the stuff I'm going to show you, you'll understand why. So what's interesting is looking at what Canada put out, and then look at what Airbnb put out. So I talked about the Airbnb one I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Notice this, Canada. Disruptions on the, of course, horizon, my friends. Disruptions. Sounds so innocent, right? And what do they mean by that? In recent years, the world has experienced significant disruptions. Oh, you remember back in 2020? That was so awesome. You had all these WARs of recent, the climate. Oh, so great. Of course, now they're talking about, well, perhaps there's some more ones coming soon here, future ones. And like I said, notice the phrase, disruptions. Let's go look at Airbnb in their new update. Let me pull this down to just show you it's their own website directly. So I'm not just showing you something from random websites here. Airbnb.com there. Notice it. Now, what does it say here?
Wow.
An update to our major disruptive, of course, policy. As part of our... Oh, I got a phone call there. I got to turn that off. All right, here we go. As part of our ongoing efforts to support travelers, we are introducing updates to our extenuating circumstances policy, including rename.
Well, we got beaten by 516 points. That's where it started. Obviously made headlines. Division 6.
Renaming it to major disruptive, of course, policy. You notice the change of the name. Kind of interesting. Notice the word major.
We still have Kmart here. We haven't got Walmart, but we have got Kmart.
This policy provides cancellation and refund support for our guests when unexpected things happen. And it's just so interesting that they put this out March 28th. It goes into effect on June 6th. Notice that this is the 6th month of the year, 6, and of course 2 + 4 = 6. That's kind of an interesting date there. Where have I heard that number before? I don't know. So that's one thing. That's just one of many things I'm going to show you in this video. And actually, this is something I didn't show on my other channel. There's also this report that came out, and this has to do with Canada as well. We actually have a few different things from Canada. RC, MP report. Canadians might not like something soon here, and it might be stepping up. I'm using that word instead of this word here, folks. How broke they are. Really? So this doesn't make any sense. Okay. People have been broke for a long time now. I don't think they're going to be rising, of course, up because they're broke. Particularly Canadians. I think
they shut their banks off.
It's going to be for a different reason. Sort of my thoughts on that, but this is what they're saying. This is what they're saying. Since there might be a little bit of this on, rest, the hopelessness of your economic situation. I think it might be a little bit more than that, folks. What do you think? You think it's probably a little bit more than that, right? Well, that's not the only country doing that right now. And actually, I'm going to get into this as well in a little bit. This is something completely different. Like I said, we have a lot of stuff to talk about, actually. Every UK household told to store tinned food and bottled water for emergency. Of course, the UK GOV creating a website to help facilitate all this. Where was that at? I got a million windows open. That's not it. Yeah, here it is. This was actually related. All right, so check this out. Oh, wait, let's get on the screen. Supermarkets urge against panic buying as GOV launches a new website. Oh my goodness, this is so ridiculous. So, of course, does this even make sense? Telling families to start getting ready, get yourself a kit of tinned food, batteries, and bottled water. I'm thinking they're just feeling sorry for them at this point, folks. I mean, I'm not talking, this isn't, people like you and I, we're ready for this type of stuff, right? And if you're not, I mean, food supplies down below, linked below, folks. It's right there. 4 weeks, $237, 3 months, $597. So if you haven't got that, go get it right now, because they're telling you right now. They're telling you. You have the UK, you got the Canadian. They're both telling you. They're even making websites and saying, "Hey, you should go get some of this stuff." They're like this. They're like, "Man, we know what's going to happen." I actually have a conscience. Like, I feel a little sorry for our own people. Let's just make a website. Say,
yeah, Kmart's going okay here, and we do have Big W, but I don't know if it's still up. I haven't seen their ads for a long time.
Hey, why don't you guys get a little kit, Do you think it's because they're broke? You think this is all going to happen? I don't think so.
The Snooze End of Financial Year sale is on now. Save up to 50% off mattresses. Plus,
you and I know that the end of this year is going to be super interesting. And that's not, I mean, that's the understatement of the year. But you thought 2020 was something. Yeah, it's nothing yet, right? So, of course, they're telling you up front, yes, indeed, go get some stuff. And, of course, if that wasn't enough, you have all these people stepping down. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon hints that he's going to retire soon here. You got
I saw Kmart went out of business in America because of Walmart. Everyone left Kmart and went to Walmart. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I thought happened.
Where is it at? You got the Klaus guy from the forum stepping down. You got the FDIC chairman stepping down, saying the workplace was not a good workplace, folks. That's the reason he stepped down, of course. But the fact of the matter is, you have all these people stepping down. You have Warren Buffett selling a lot of his stocks, holding cash. You got Billy Boy, the computer guy, owned a computer software company that you're probably using on your computer right now, selling a ton of his stock and buying up farmland. You know what farmland's for, right? That's when you know everything's going to go really, really bad in the economy. You buy up farmland, you buy up gold, you buy up minerals, things like that, stuff that actually has value. People need to eat, for example. They don't need Teslas when they don't have money. They need food, okay? So That's why he's buying up farmland. It's not rocket science. But of course, this is where, like, for example, Warren Buffett taking a cash position right now. And of course, they're like, he's not going to do it forever. He's going to start buying stuff. No, he isn't. He knows what's coming. That's why he's doing that. It's not rocket science, okay? Of course, they want you to believe it's not that way. It's like kind of funny, actually, watching this. And I just, there's.
Okay, if these billionaires have got billions of dollars in American money, when the American dollar collapses, they're going to be as broke as anyone else. I wonder what's really going on here.
All those people that just sit down, they work all day, they come home, they're making no money now, right? Because you see what the economy has become. It's become ridiculous at this point. I mean, I showed it in the last video. You look at 2018. 2018, to live comfortably, all you had to make was, I think, between 42 to 60,000 a year, depending on what state you lived in. Now, to live comfortably, you have to make a lot more than that. Matter of fact, I would guess, and it's hard to compare these two, but I had this thing from 2018 and one from 2024 showing, like, the 2024 one is family of four, 200,000 to 300,000 a year to live comfortably. Now, the 2018 one just says a living wage, whatever that means, is like 40,000 to 50,000 a year. So from 40,000 to 50,000 a year, which probably translates into like 130,000 for a family of four, I don't know. 130,000 versus 200,000 to 300,000. That's basically 6 years. You need to have double the money to live now.
Yeah, JD, Diane's been posting links on Australia going cashless by October. So I do know about that. Thank you. Thanks to Diane.
And our wonderful press tells you that there's all these jobs, when in reality, what's going on is you lost the good job and now you have to work 3 jobs, right? That's basically what's going on, just like this lady here.
Hour and her UPS job at $16.50 an hour, both above Ohio minimum wage. She says she brings home roughly $1,500 a month. What is your definition of a living wage?
Wow, who was just talking about a living wage? Barry, you were. What a coincidence. Wow.
Being able to afford.
Aware Super's My Retirement Planner helps members get retirement ready. Aware Super is super helpful.
Research shows 2.3 million project management positions a year are expected to open by 2030. That's why I'm changing it.
Study project management online, designed by those who change it. Search Monash online today.
Your bill, your monthly.
She doesn't even talking about like Netflix or anything. She says, like, basically I can pay for my electricity in my house and stuff like that. So a livable wage now is like, you have to make basically double what you made in 2018 to even make to pay for these bills now. And when they say a family of four to live comfortably, 200,000 to 300,000, only 1% of America makes 300,000 a year, and only 6% of America makes 200,000 a year. So only 6% of America lives comfortably, according to those numbers, taking those two different statistics and putting them together. So the fact of the matter is, clearly, people are too overworked. They're not even paying attention to what's going on. Hopefully, they start paying attention. I mean, you have GOVs telling you to go get these kits now and stuff.
Yeah.
Right here.
And Diane, that's certainly turning out to be true. Look what they've done to us with the COVID lockdowns. We were the most locked down country in the world, apart from Canada, or as well as Canada.
Like, what are you trying to tell me? What are you telling me right now? Right? What are they saying? Every UK household should buy some of this canned food and bottled water, just in case. Yeah, okay, dude. So that's going on. And actually, we're going to get into some other stuff here. I want to talk about this as well. Something rather curious going on with this. This guy, he worked for the DHS, and apparently he said that there's all these NG, of course, O's that are essentially getting money from, you know, the GOV, and they're making these. They're using churches. They're using church names to do this stuff, folks. Catholic. This one's Catholic here. Lutheran. This is a good family organization. They're not doing anything for that, folks. It's just a, of course, cover for what they are doing, which is nothing related to that, their name. Okay? It has nothing to do with religion whatsoever. So, of course, they're helping, you know, bring, of course, in, if you understand what I mean, some of the not so legals, as I call them, using a little bit of language difference there. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I'm sure some of you do. Some of you might not. Just check the comments so they'll answer your questions. But you can see kind of what's going on with that. And, of course, those in the, like, for instance, Joy Behar. She had Bill Maher on recently. And, of course, she doesn't have any criticism whatsoever for a current prez, which is kind of interesting, the reasoning behind it. She's afraid. She's afraid that those that like the other guy will go that direction instead. And, of course, Bill Maher is pointing out how she loses all credibility doing this because your audience doesn't trust you whatsoever as a result of it.
So, but I'm nervous about saying anything against Biden because I feel, you know, not that I.
She's afraid. She's afraid, folks. They're going to go for the other guy. Oh my goodness.
You have some more than I do, obviously, but
I don't know about that.
Are you afraid that you might, you know,
She's afraid you're going to encourage them to think a certain way. You must, of course, lie to make sure they don't think the wrong way. Okay? That's kind of the logic. You know what I mean? That's the logic.
At least we know they know what's going on. So they're not completely stupid.
Days. And indeed, we are seeing so many strange things around us at this point, folks. We even have apparently a Hollywood actress now suing an AI company, Scarlett Johansson. Apparently, OpenAI, you know, ChatGPT, approached her about using her voice for ChatGPT, and she turned it down. But apparently, they ended up using a voice that's very similar to hers in the end anyways. And so she's going to sue them over it, like they stole her voice. I think what they did is they probably found an actor or a voice actress that has almost the exact voice as her and then just used her. In reality, though, in a sense, they're just stealing her voice. If you think about it, I mean, she might have a case, actually. Of course, the guy that runs OpenAI is, I've talked about him in the past, a really interesting person. Will just tell you, hey, it might be the end, you know, of the world, but I'm going to make money while I'm going there. You know, he's literally said stuff like that. Where's this AI going, right? You don't know. But at any rate, so there's all that going on, folks. And actually, I'm going to get into more over on my business channel, Sell Daddy One. I kind of wonder if some of you guys think, let me know in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.
Okay, I thought we'd go to this one next.
The death of Iran's president revealed a secret that was being kept from the whole world. And guess what, folks? Today, we're going to talk about what that secret is. All right, folks, let's get into this one. I have to tell you, you just can't make this stuff up. Now, I want to tell you something that I think is really important, and I have to premise what I'm about to say by encouraging you guys to go back to the video that I did on Sunday night, which is actually Monday morning at 3:30 a.m. I had to wait until all the information came out from the media, where I gave you a general update as into what had happened with the president and the foreign minister of Iran. Now, all of this is really, really important because You need to understand the foundation of what sits and how things are going to be affected overall, and some of the geopolitical implications of the death of the foreign minister and the president. And of course, we're beginning to see a lot of those things materialize. If you have not seen that video, I would highly recommend that you watch that video. It's on the YouTube channel. As well, I have a couple of other videos that I have done on the subject of Iran that I will include in the description of this particular video, and I'll also pin them to the comments, because you need to look at some of these things to understand the geopolitics, and I think they would all be very useful. By the way, many of these videos will feature speeches that actually came from Raisi and even Abdullahian, and there's a lot to actually be heard here and to understand and to recognize. So go over that material. I think it'll be useful, and I think it will help you to better understand what we're talking about here. Now, I have to tell you, I mentioned in the video that I did on Monday that there would be a materialization of things that fall in the category of unintended consequences. I also said that we would start to see things materialize that we were not aware of, because the secrecy of those things that are being kept from the whole world is solely dependent upon the fact that certain lives are still intact. And when the foreign minister and the president, who are the front-facing people of Iran, die, then many of the things that are going in the background or going on in the background are going to surface. And folks, we are seeing things being surfaced right now. Things that we were not aware of, things that people were not discussing because they were kept on the down low. And this story speaks of one of those things. Look what it says. It says, secret Iran-U.S. talks on Gaza war undermined by Raisi death. Okay, understand this for a second, folks. There's already a problem with this headline when you recognize the fact that the United States has entered into secret talks with Iran over the war in Gaza. I think it's particularly astounding, hypocritical, foolish, arrogant, evil, outright wicked to think about the fact that the United States, this current regime, has chosen to enter into secret discussions with Iran concerning Gaza after Iran launched the single greatest and most large-scale attack ever against Israel in recent days. Not days, heck, recent years. Let me just take this one step further. We have never seen in the history of the Middle East any such large-scale attack on Israel. We've never seen more missiles launched. We've never seen more targeted drone attacks, all in one shot by an organized declaration of war by one nation unilaterally against another. We've never seen it, and yet Gaza and what's happened in Gaza is fully created by those terrorists who created that situation. Iran fed them in doing that very thing, yet the United States is having secret conversations with Iran, the people who actually created this problem, the people who continue to push this problem. Folks, that is exactly what's going on. Look at this. This is absolutely crazy. And I'm telling you, folks, this is real. Like, this isn't something that is not, like, this is completely real. This is not fictitious, okay? This is completely crazy, okay? Look at this. And by the way, before I read this article, understand, if you've not made the connection yet, and some people might not make the connection, I don't blame them for not making the connection, because there's some real complicated things here. Understand that the only reason why Iran would engage in a conversation with the United States of America, or the United States of America would engage in a conversation with Iran regarding something going on in Gaza, is to make multilateral attempts to de-seat the current leaders that are in Israel. This was an attempt on removing Netanyahu from the place of authority, so removing the people that are actually seeking to fight this war and to protect the people of Israel. This is no joke. This is exactly what's going on, and they are seeking to undermine any effort that Israel is making to protect itself and remaining in a
Diane always wins, though, I've got to admit.
Place where they continue to walk with the function of self-determination, which they are fully within their rights to be able to have. Folks, this is evil stuff, okay? By the way, before I read the first sentence of this article, you can already see how completely twisted some of the sentiments are, even of the writings that we see in this actual article, okay? It's completely crazy. Like, for example, they're going to use the term good progress. Good progress? You mean it's good progress to actually engage in an enemy of the state in order to undermine the efforts of your only ally in the region? I mean, it's ridiculous, but let me read the paragraph. It says, secret talks between Iran and the United States in Oman were making good progress, but have now been jeopardized by the sudden death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and his foreign minister. Brett McCurk, U.S. President Joe Biden's senior Middle East advisor, held indirect negotiations earlier this month with Ali Bagheri Khani, Iran's point man for negotiations with the West, according to 3 Iranian resources close to the talks. It's just, I'm sorry, but that's just disgusting, okay? But let's go on with the article. The talks took place in Muscat, which hosted secret meetings between Tehran and Washington a decade ago that led to the 2013 JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action nuclear agreement, which, by the way, let me just say this about the JCPOA. The JCPOA is not worth the toilet paper that is in the room, in the toilets that were actually used in the negotiations of the agreement. It is a pile of garbage agreement that gives Iran the right to be able, through a sunset clause.
Be ready to treat them. With Allianz Comprehensive Car Insurance, you can save on your premium by increasing your basic excess. Get your quote today. Allianz.
Matchmasters is awesome. I love playing against real people.
Your second is to develop nuclear weapons and destroy the lives of Jewish people, American people, and everybody around them.
Yeah, JD, as soon as it's over, it's got 10 minutes to go, then I'm out.
That does not agree in their flavor of Islam. That is the truth, folks. I just wanted to say that. It's ridiculous. We were wrong being in Oman negotiating the JCPOA, and we are certainly wrong being in Oman right now seeking to negotiate this agreement. By the way, this is really interesting. The person who orchestrated the agreement, the secret talks that created the JCPOA, is Barack Obama. He's the one that did it. Isn't that a coincidence, folks? Look at the context of the decision being made to go back to Oman and make this agreement. Biden, I guarantee you, is still receiving direction from Obama, and make no mistake about it, this is an extension of his presidency. Okay, I'm just telling you that right now. Obama's presidency. Look, there's too many commonalities that exist here, and I'm not going to even get into this, but this is absolutely crazy. It's hypocritical. It's wrong. They are completely orchestrating a mechanism that disables the Israelis at their knees. It's crazy. They're working against Israel. Completely wrong. The article goes on to say they were the first round of discussions between the U.S. and Iran since January. This is crazy, folks, okay? One source close to the talks, which were first reported by Axios on Friday, told Middle East Eye that this is, by the way, Middle East Eye is the news organization that we pulled this article from. So let me start that again. One source close to the talks were first reported by Axios on Friday, told Middle East Eye that discussions between Bagheri Khani and McCurk were progressing well and were close to reaching some sort of an agreement. I wonder what that agreement would have been. I mean, honestly, what kind of an agreement can you come to with Iran regarding Gaza without having Israel at the talks? Tell me, the people who are the fathers of these terrorists, the people who support and fund these terrorists.
Tell you, this guy's spot on, though.
The United States of America is going to come to an agreement with them. Outside of Israel? Oh, my goodness. Folks, let me tell you something. Iran has just found out after messing around. They've been messing around, and now they've been finding out. And folks, I'm going to tell you this right now. The United States of America, after having messed around, is about to find out. This is crazy. You do not mess with God's chosen people. But this is, I mean, look, what we're doing is just wrong. They're supposed to be our ally. And look at what we're doing here. It's just crazy. But look what it goes on to say. Bagheri Khani was deputy foreign minister at the time, but following the death of Hossein Amir Abdollahian in the helicopter crash that killed Raisi on Sunday, he is now the acting foreign minister, okay? Which, by the way, he's also not a good guy and has direct ties with the IRGC, just like Amir Abdollahian, which, by the way, Abdollahian was the highest ranking member of the IRGC, although nobody wants to really talk about that, right? Look at this next paragraph, and this paragraph is absolutely appalling. This paragraph makes me sick to my stomach. It is so absolutely evil. This is so ridiculous. Look what it says. It says the talks focused on 3 subjects: a shared desire for a change in government in Israel. That's one subject. The subject of the negotiations was a change of government in Israel, ending Israel's war on Gaza and preventing the conflict from spreading elsewhere in the region. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second. Iran hates Israel, and the United States of America is going to have a conversation with Iran, which, by the way, Iran, the leaders of Iran, not only hate Israel, they hate the United States of America. But the United States of America is going to have a conversation in how to help Iran choose to have regime change in Israel. They're also going to talk to Iran about ending the war in Gaza, even though the Iranians started the war in Gaza, and even though Iranians launched a full-scale attack on Israel. This is happening, folks. This is...
He's probably been up on coffee all night, Di.
Crazy. And then the third thing they want to do is prevent the conflict from spreading elsewhere in the region. I have news for you. It has spread elsewhere in the region, yet the United States of America wants to continue to have a conversation with the people that are spreading it. They're spreading it through Yemen. They're spreading it through the Houthis in Yemen. They're spreading it through Hamas. They're spreading it through Hezbollah in Lebanon. Folks, these people are doing all of it, and the United States of America is entering into a discussion with them. This is evil. This is completely just wicked. An analyst close to the Iranian ruling establishment suggested to MEE that the talks also seem to have served as a way of establishing a ceasefire between the U.S. on one side and Iran and its allies on the other. What a crazy, insane way of thinking. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Okay? This is nuts. The article goes on to say, since the October 7th Hamas-led attack on Israel, which, by the way, it's not Hamas-led, it's actually Iran-led, but let's just go on. Since the October 7th Hamas-led attack on Israel and subsequent war on Gaza, Iranian allies such as Yemen's Houthi movement, they're calling it a Houthi movement, folks, a Houthi movement. They're a terrorist organization, officially known as Ansar Allah, and Iraqi paramilitaries have staged attacks on U.S. targets in the region. Think about the significance of that, folks. Think about that. The article goes on to say Iranian drones and missiles were also shot down by U.S. forces in April when Iran staged a massive attack on Israel in response to the killing of the Republican Guard commanders in Iran's consulate in Damascus. It wasn't Iran's consulate. It was the building next to the consulate. It was the Quds building. Well, I'm telling you, this stuff is so ridiculous. The analyst believes there may have also been discussions on Iran's nuclear program and easing oil sanctions. Of course there are. This is the Biden regime. Of course they're going to be friendly to our enemies. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just insane. It's absolutely insane. The JCPOA, in which Iran curbed its nuclear development program in return for sanctions relief, collapsed after the Trump administration unilaterally withdrew the United States from it in 2018. I have news for you. It did not collapse when Trump unilaterally removed itself from the JCPOA. It collapsed the very moment it was signed. It collapsed the very moment it was created. However, last year, Washington and Tehran reached a prisoner exchange deal that included...
I wonder what was in the American Indians peace pipe. Do you reckon it was marijuana?
The U.S. handing over $6 billion in confiscated oil revenues. $6 billion. $6 billion. Folks, this is the ridiculousness of the United States of America. Let me tell you, I don't have to go on to read the rest of this article because it's absolutely crazy. But let me just simply say this. Let me say that now they are saying that they are not going to continue on these discussions until a new leader is actually elected, right? A new leader that replaces Raisi. And of course, they finalize some of the appointees of Khomeini and so on and so forth. But let me just explain how absolutely absurd and obscene all of this is. This is crazy because what we are doing is we are solidifying the position of Iran in the region, and we are completely delegitimizing Israel. We're completely throwing them away. We're telling them, in essence, that we don't care about them and we're not concerned about their safety. And we are continuing to open the doors for terrorist activity to take place so that these people can find a launching pad to create
minutes.
demands based on circumstances that they completely created. This is absolutely insane. Let me read a portion of this. It says this. It says, following Raisi's death, Iran needs to hold a presidential election within 50 days, and it is unlikely that major foreign policy decisions will be taken during this period of uncertainty. U.S. presidential elections are meanwhile due in November. Here's the quote, right? It says this: given this situation, we should accept disruptions and a halt in negotiations with the Americans. This is an analyst that's talking about this, right? He goes on to say, since both the president and the foreign minister have passed away and an election is due soon, negotiations will likely be delayed until after the election. Similar to what happened during the 2021 presidential race when talks were put on hold until after the election. By the way, the 2021...
I'm Wayne Robert McDonald. Got diagnosed with a metastasised prostate cancer. Cancer Council, it's such a good organisation. There's quite a lot of support for people going through cancer.
Presidential race and the race for the presidency that existed in the United States of America, and what happened when Raisi came in office, and all of those things were all delayed because everybody knew that depending on what president was in office would greatly determine how any negotiations would be held, if they were held at all. And if President Trump would have stayed in office, then Iran easily would have given up the position that they were in and would have literally had their teeth taken out of their mouth so that their bark would only be heard instead of having no bite. But the reality of it is the Biden regime continues to put the United States of America in a terrible position by not supporting Israel and by allowing Israel to be put in a place of vulnerability, which, by the way, they're not going to lose. Let me just say this one more time. They are not going to lose. I want to just sort of close off this thought by reading to you a passage that everybody should know. Let me read Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31. I'm going to read this to you, and it's a few verses, but it's really important. I want you to think on the words that I'm actually reading because it's critical. This is God making a covenant with Israel, a new covenant. Look what he says. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Verse 32, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband to them, saith the Lord. Verse 33, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord, for I will forgive their iniquity and I will remember their sin no more. But let's focus on verse 35 and 36 here, because this is where it really is important, right? Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. Verse 36, if those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Think about that for a second. Think about the significance of that. If the sun, the moon, and the stars are gone, if the ordinances of the sun and the moon and the stars are gone, then I'll cut off Israel, which means, look up. You see the sun? You see the moon? You see the stars? God's not cutting off Israel, folks. Israel's here to stay. So if you want to get it wrong, you want to bet against history.
Okay, guys, see in 48 hours.
We need to pay attention to this, folks. We need to teach this to our children and our children's children.